No, they are about to see the title with the music and the 10-minute timer. Once the 10-minute timer kicks to 0, I'll shoot it over to you guys. I'm also going to have the stream pulled up on my phone just in case, any fuckery happens. DaWeirdcast is live, so come say wow. Lonestar GT list review with Matt, Dillon, and Wheel Spinner Joe. Check.
All right. I think we're live. I'm pretty sure we're live. Looks like we're live. Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight for the DaWeirdcast annual yearly Lonestar review. So we are going to be going over just Order and Death today. So if you're here for Chaos and Destruction, hang around, but come back tomorrow. I am joined by two guests. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Matt Robish. I'm part of the Weirdcast crew here regularly, and I play games.
All right. Down at the left there, we got one of the guys from Houston, our kind of honorary Weird Ape. Why don't you introduce yourself, Dylan?
Hey guys, I'm Dillon Corcoran. I play all of the death, and I am here to just give you the hottest of takes.
Right. Okay. So we're going to get into it here shortly, but shameless self plug. You should go to battleworks.com. We have a reasonable amount of wargaming equipment that is available for purchase. And about 30 minutes ago, I added Lonestar GT local pickup. So if you guys pick up anything, you can actually have it set to be picked up in Dallas at the Lonestar GT. Get any of your orders in by the end of day tomorrow, so I can get that knocked out and finished while going over the next set of lists for you guys. So battleworks.com works with an E because works with a O was taken. So anyway, let's get right into it. Our first list that we will be going over tonight is by Alex Mall. He is playing Stormcast Eternals. So, what do we got? Army type, Signs of the Storm. So he wants the deep strikes. Knights Excelsior. So that's Paladins as battle line. And once per turn, he can pick a Paladin unit that is outnumbered in melee and give them +1 to their attacks, +1 to hit and wound, which is really nice. Grand Strat, Spellcasting Savant. That's pretty standard for Stormcast. Bloodthirsty, we want those rerolls to charge. So, nice. Holy Command, Call for Aid. Get some Redeemers back once per game. We need free dudes. So, let's get to the Hero Suite. Oh my. Night Vexillor. Both with Meteoric Standards. Pretty common pick in Stormcast right now. We have the Lord Imperatant for the 7-inch Deep Strike. That's really important. We have a Knight Incanter for the Auto Unbind, which is really good for stopping that turn 1 magical dominance. She's also an amazing caster for only 120 points.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the Mirror Shield, so you can't shoot her unless you're within 9 inches of her. So you don't even have Lookout Sir negation within 12 inches. You got to get within 9. And then another Night Vexillor. We got 2 units of Grand Hammer Annihilators, so those are going to be the big damagey boys. Recently got a massive point drop down from 240 to 200. Regular Shield Annihilators, 150 down to 200. Liberators at 100, that's going to be our core target. We got Everblaze Comet, never leave that without it. Contesters, Quester Soul Swords, which are really good objective contesters and skirmishers. And let's see. We have Wizard Battalion, Redemption Brotherhood, and what's that extra artifact? Hey, my mic's wild.
Arcane Totem.
1 second. Chair got.
Yeah,
Fix that
Arcane
audio.
Totem on one of the Vexillors.
Discord audio? Yep.
So while they're getting that taken care of, my off the cuff is it's a Vex Bomb list, but it's less focused on the direct hammer of just here's my once per game detonation and what can I do with it. You've got some follow-up here in terms of taking the Everblaze Comet and the Tempesters and all those Annihilators. Annihilators are pretty common in a Vex Bomb list, but the goal is that this might be something that can hit again after the first round because of the Tempesters. They might get traded if you don't win a double turn with them, in which case this is basically just I have one scalpel and everything else is a area explosion.
Hmm.
All right, guys. How am I sounding? Am I good? Better? All right, guys. How am I sounding? Am I good? Better? All right. Ben, thank you for joining. Dillon Hildebrand, thank you for joining as well. I looked at your list earlier today, sir. Okay, so that's that list. Like Matt said, it's going to Vex Bomb you early. It's got a couple good targets it wants to land on. Impact hits from those Annihilators, plus the deep strike hits from the Annihilators, plus the impact hit from the Annihilators. Followed it. It's a lot of mortal wounds. It wants to scalpel stuff out. And Tempesters are just really good shooting. He's going to screen them with the Liberators. They're going to die. He's going to bring them back. He's going to do it again. But yeah, no, this is Vex Bomb at home. All right, let's get that next list.
Oh boy.
All right, we got KO, Ashley, whack player. So let's see, Army Subfaction, Bracknar, Grand Strategy, Rule the Skies, Fascist Rhetoric. We're gonna skip all of that. So Arcanaut Admiral with a Nullstone. Weird interaction with like the new Grand Strategy for like KO. The Admiral has to get out of the boat to actually do that new Grand Strat because you don't contest while you're in the boat.
Makes
The
sense.
new battle tactic, yeah.
Yep. Navigator, reducing movement or giving her boats extra movement. Voidstone Orb, extra unbinds, up to an infinite number of them. Ionis Cryptborn, I think, is an excellent ally at 400 for anyone in order that wants a self-sufficient monster. He's a dragon. He does pretty good shooting. He has a really good chain lightning prayer. If he chooses to give up both of his prayers, he can smite someone for the D3 across the board automatically, or just automatically get his chain lightning prayer. So, fantastic model for 400 points. Arcanaut Company, they're there to fill battle line roles. 15 Thunderers because something has to die, and Thunderers said, we'll do that. Well, you got 3 of everything. The deck sweepers, the cannons, the mortars. We got the ironclad to move it all around. The engine rigger to follow around. So it's a KO list. It's got Ionis in there, which means it's deviated from the normal KO. But it has the skeletons and all the punching power that you expect from a KO, plus a Stormcast Dragon. I like it. All of it wrapped up nicely in a 1-drop. No, 2 drops.
Is there an Ether Chemist?
Am
Am I
Just a
missing an
navigator.
No.
Just Navigator and the Admiral.
Mhm.
Yep. I had to find the point
Okay.
somewhere for Ionis.
Right.
So that points hit that we took from so KO got hit with the battle scroll pretty hard. Not as hard as they'll probably make it out to sound. It turns out taking 10 points off of pretty much everything you take still amounts to only losing half a unit.
Mhm.
But given the 40-point triumph bid, it seems that the half unit that she lost rounds up to a whole unit. And if I had to guess, that looks a hell of a lot like she lost a Aether Chemist she used to have there.
Yeah.
without that, the Thunderers are not as scary as you're used to seeing them because they usually get the disembark, gain an extra Ren from the Aether Chemist, gain the once per game special ammo from the Admiral, get themselves down to Ren 3 to 4 on everything they're shooting you with. Without the Aether Chemist, they can't do that, so they're safe to kind of stay in the boat longer than they normally would. So this looks like two big threats, right? You've got the Thunderers in the Ironclad, and then you've got the Ionis floating around as a second big threat. There's a lot of shooting power there still, make no mistake, and it's a much more mobile list as a result of the fact that they don't have to get out and then get back in. But at the same time, this is very much all eggs, two baskets. That's my read on it anyway.
That's going to be one really full Ironclad.
Right.
Yes.
Vince, he is a fantastic skirmishing piece. And under Finest Hour, he can sit in front of your army.
Yeah,
and
he's not going
probably
to
not die.
he's not going to beat a whole lot of really durable crap to death, but he's super good support, and he can go operate by himself into anything that isn't just dumping mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Ionis has a 5 up board, right?
No, not natively.
Oh, okay.
Yep. He
No, I'm thinking of the Sylvaneth hero that came out at the same time,
Yeah.
Farnos.
He gets his 6 up ward from hammers, but yeah, no, he
Got
can just give himself a 6 up ward if he needs to. He has the prayers. All right, cool. Let's get to that next list.
All right, more Stormcast Eternals, Astral Templars. I approve. Been saying that that's the best Stormcast Eternals subfaction since the book launch.
Yep. So Scions, Deep Strike, Slaughter of Sorcery. That's just not normally what you see from a Stormcast list. So good job, Axton. Keep it fresh. So we have a Lord Relictor, we have a Knight Relictor, and Ionis. That's 4 prayers. Neat. I don't hate that. So we jump down. We got Paladors, and Liberators. So good kind of skirmishy, teleporty units in the Paladors. Liberators are going to stand there and then die. We have Fulminators because translocating Fulminators with blessed weapons is fantastic. And then we have Tempesters, which are an excellent skirmishing unit. So I like it. Oh, Axton's the young kid. Okay, yeah, no. Good job, Axton. I like that.
He makes lists better than half of us.
Right? Leave it to an 11-year to have the only original list in the lot.
Right? Priest heavy Stormcast, Astral Templars. It looks like it's a very low model count army between 2 units of Dracothian Guard, and both of which are reinforced, and then the Paladors. So there's not a lot of models on the table to move around here. 1 drop is nice, means he's going to be able to dictate whether he needs to go first or second.
Yep.
And Ionis is another big anvil piece, which we just talked about how useful that is in Ashley's list. All the same benefits apply here, except that he actually gets a sub-faction bonus on top of it for being immune to roars.
Yep. There's Gargants out there. Man doesn't want to get headlocked or body slammed.
Yeah, all his prayers are all his buffs are uninteractable. He has really good battle tactic scoring potential with the Paladors running around. Very good speed. This list has a lot of really good tools.
Yeah. All right. So I like it. Let's get that next list.
Looks like Cities is up next.
Oh, good.
All right. We've got Brett Anders playing a Cities of Sigmar Misthaven list. Misthaven? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Thanks, Games Workshop. Why do we have this little circle over the A?
Right.
Could have just called it Misthaven and been easy, but no, we can't trip on Frosthaven, Gloomhaven's territory. Anyway, grand strategy, banners held high, so have more flags than your opponent at the end of the game. Triumph Indomitable, so if he's 2,000 points, it doesn't matter, he's never going to get it. Alchemite Warforger, Free Guild Cavalier Marshal, Galen Vendenst, Free Guild Marshal on Griffin, Grizzled Veteran, so he's, I think that's can't be wounded on 1s, 2s, or 3s.
Yep.
Or is it 1, 2, 3s, or 4s? It might be 5 ups only. It's
only on 4 up.
Okay, it's still really good.
Yeah.
Lance, so better on the charge, and Sigmarite Warhammer, so a lot better on the charge.
Yup.
Haskell Hexbane, Pontifex Sinestra, a unit of Steel Helms, 2 units of Cavaliers, a unit of Wildercore Hunters, Command Corps, Hexbane's Hunters, Deralia, and Free Guild Command Corps. This looks
This
very
looks familiar.
similar to a list that we saw do, believe, a first place finish at LVO.
Yes.
Yeah. I like how he didn't
So-
even bother to give the Warforger a spell.
It casts
I mean, let's be
Mystic
fair.
Shield.
No. He casts his War Scroll spell. He's either casting his War Scroll spell or +1 to save. There's
Yep.
no reason for him. I guess. Okay,
Blizzard
Dillon can
really is
attest
the
to
only
the fact that Blizzard comes up.
Right.
Especially
on
that
guy.
Blizzard.
Yeah, right. He might explode himself, but he seems to have 100% success rate on the spell, as far as Dillon can attest. That's all I've seen.
Right. So recap
Double
on the
battle
list.
regiment. Yeah.
Good.
Basically, it's a lot of scalpel pieces that are. Did I miss? Yes, there's a Cavalier Marshal. So there, you can use the Cavalier Marshal and the Free Guild Marshal and a unit of Cavaliers to charge all 3 of them on the same turn, possibly your opponent's turn using counter charge, and get to go 3 activations in a row on your turn, or 2 in a row before your opponent on their turn because of the strike first shenanigans. The idea is basically that you have a lot of small units that have enough wounds that it's hard for your opponent to really delete them without committing a lot, in which case you're trading usually up. You want to trade advantageously throughout the whole game and say, here's my 100-point unit, here's your 200-point unit. We're both going to die, but you've lost more material than I have. That's the goal here. There's a lot of units that have their own ward save, so that if Pontifex misses her 3 up to get her ward off for the whole army, they're still safe. That Free Guild Marshal on Griffin is far more dangerous than he has any right to be, really, or than he looks like he is at 270 points. There's a lot of scary pieces. There's a lot of hammers, and even with some points shifts from since LVO in the battle scroll, it's still a scary list. I think there was probably a second Warforger in the other list or something like that that's now gone. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, it's still very, very solid. The Free Guild Marshal, especially on the Griffin, is the countercharge alone is going to catch a lot of people out. And on him, it's a terrifying scalpel. But it's a very, very tech-heavy list, very, very high skill cap. This is either great or terrible, and it depends entirely on the player.
Yeah.
Yes.
Legion of Blood pays 500 points for a Vlad that does something like that. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's get that next list.
All right, next up we have Caleb Hastings bringing Seraphon, Thunder Lizards.
Oh, baby, I love that.
Oh.
So, Thunder Lizards, Overshadow, which is have battle line and your opponent have no battle line?
Your opponent
have
needs
starting battle line.
Gotcha.
Yes, and you also need to have a battle line in the center of the table specifically, I think.
No, that's the other one. Overshadow is just you have starting battle line, opponent's starting battle line is all dead.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So,
looking at his battle line list, that shouldn't be too hard for him to have one left.
No.
Yep.
3 Stegodons, love it. 12 Agrodon Lancers, love to see that. We have Skink on Troglodon. That's a fun little tech piece that can get really difficult to deal with. And then the Saurus Oldwood and Carnosaur, which is slappy and has... Is that the one with the Infinity Gauntlet that like turns off? What's it turn off? I know it has an Infinity Gauntlet. It does something neat.
I thought it was just a shooting profile.
I thought it also did something else.
It just shoots right now.
Okay.
It's been a minute since I've seen him on the table. I'd like the Trog pick here that makes those Stegodons a lot more durable with an AoE of -to hit.
Yeah.
The Agrodons are reasonable hammers. They're not the best in the world, but they're still going to do enough to deal with most of the things, and they're pretty durable with -1 to be -1 damage.
Yeah.
And -1 be hit from the Troglodon. This looks like it's an endurance list that wants to sit there and grind out. Notably absent, not a Slan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that. More like this.
I do.
Yeah.
This is good. More like this. Yeah, no. Love the list. Triple Stegodons. That's brave. 12 Agrodons.
Man's list.
Yes. This man's here to have some good Warhammer.
Yes.
All right, let's get that next list.
Realm Lords are up next.
Oh, good.
Is this the Zytrek? Yep. Okay.
Yep, this is Zytrek.
Oh my god, a Techless.
Yep. Didn't think you'd ever see him again.
It's a rough General's Handbook for him.
It is.
So we're looking at Lumineth Realm Lords, Zytrek. So +1 to cast and unbind army wide. Grand strategy is spellcasting savant. So his Cathalar, who is the general, needs to be alive at the end of the game. Leaders, we got Archmage Teclis and the Light of Eltharion. So 2 special characters, and then a Cenari Cathalar, who is a lore master, has the Silver Wand, and lore of Primal Frost, Merciless Blizzard, Total Eclipse, Overwhelming Heat. So I believe that is an extra cast, not an extra unbind from Silver Wand. It's been a bit since I played Lumineth.
I'll check it real quick. I think it's to both.
Yeah.
Might be both.
I think it's that. Yeah, I think it's that once per game.
Merciless Blizzard, Total Eclipse, Overwhelming Heat. So lots of very scary spells on her. And the ability to auto cast on a 9. I do think that the FAQ recently seemed to imply that you could actually add primal dice to that. Is that right?
Yeah.
'Cause it's considered to be a roll.
It basically makes it start at a 9. You can add any modifiers to it after that. It was already working that way. There was just some ambiguity in how the FAQ worked.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So automatically gets a 9 and then throws primal dice until Merciless Blizzard goes off. And because she hasn't actually rolled any dice, there's no risk of a primal miscast unless she rolls 2 rolls of 1 in a row.
Yeah.
Which would, at that
Turns out
point,
really good.
yeah, fairly reasonable if you can get, or fairly reasonably consistent if you can get 2 primal dice to throw at it. Need to be bottom of the round in order to do that, but options on the table are always good. Teclis having a bit of a rough run because of the primal dice, making it easier to unbind what he does. Though he's still Teclis, he still has the spell bomb tricks that he's always had. Let's look at the rest of the army. 10 Wardens, cheap screen.
Yep.
Not too cheap, but effective.
Mhm.
5 Dawn Riders, 5 Blade Lords, bodyguard for the Cathalar. 5 Dawn Riders that are not battle line, just because he only has 1 unit of Wardens. Spirit of the Mountain. Okay, so we got Mount Muji. And then a spell portal for Teclis. Coming in at 2,000 points even, 1 drop battalion because he really wants to go first, and cast 5 up ward.
Yep. Yeah, 29 models. It's really light, but it's very, very debuff heavy, very control based. It will do reasonable on the maps that you can control the engagements. If you get Defender, this is going to be a lot scarier to deal with. But there's a few spread out maps. It's going to have some real issues scoring anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dawn Riders have some capacity to get out of the bubble and get to objectives, but as soon as they're outside of that 18-inch radius of Teclis, they're dead.
Yeah.
I think the mountain pick is very interesting.
I would have preferred to see Avlanor in there for his AoE version of the same thing, but obviously a little more pricey.
Yeah. Or
he doesn't fit in the battle regiment.
No,
because it's a behemoth slot, it can go with Teclis. That's the real decision maker.
Yep.
He wants that 1 drop.
Oh yeah. It's important for it.
No, I like Lore Master plus deep thinkering out the sigil, the endless spell.
He didn't
think about it. So think about it, right? Because it's cast on a 9, it's Zytrek actually a 10, and it's next to Teclis actually starts on an 11.
Yeah.
So you need 1 primal dice to hit a 12. Never mind. That's not a chance at all. It's just I've decided this is the turn I cast Merciless Blizzard. Would you like to unbind?
Yeah.
It's whether they burn it early or if they're trying to get Total Eclipse out early.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you spend your sure shot? And it's going to be a matchup specific dependent thing. Realm Lord's always a very techie army and always a very counter play heavy army. So a lot of opportunity for skill expression here, but Dillon, you've already pointed out this is 28, 29 models, so every mistake hurts real bad.
Yep.
All right. Good list. Let's move on to the next one. Also, Brian, be nice. Lumineth's trying their hardest.
Looking like Fire Slayers. Joe, I think this is you.
Yeah. All right. Fire Slayers, Greybeard. So Foot heroes get an extra wound, and he gets 2 additional artifacts. Masters of the Forge have a freeze alive at the end of it. Inspired, because +1 wound is sick. Basically, most everything in this army just got a buff, a really good buff with that battle scroll. So, Battlesmith with null stated icon, that's a 5-up spell ignore plus a 6-up rally, and a once per game. I think it's a 4-up rally, automatic 6-up ward, and then once per game, it should be a 5-up ward he can give out. Arc Rune Master with the volatile brazier, so basically he's going to be able to double the casting range of his invocations. He has heal. Odd pick. I prefer Curse, but heal's not bad. Grimhold Exile is going to hand out Runner Charge once per game, wholly within 9 of him. He's also a little slappier than your average dwarf hero. Celestant Prime, because mortal wounds right there when you want them is always very nice. And everything that model does is on its war scroll, so great to have that. Arc Rune Sun, because he's a cheap hero. Sometimes you need a cheap weird hero. And then we have a Rune Father, which is going to give out +1 attacks to all Fire Slayer models once per game. Absolutely amazing. So, let's see. Spirit of Grimnir should also be +1 to charge. Volkite Berserkers, Bladed Sling Shields, cheap screens that have bad impacts. Then we have 10 Volkites with hand axes. That's going to be additional attack when they charge. Hearthguard Berserker. That's going to be your retinue for your Rune Father. Maybe the Rune Son. I don't know. We have the Molten Infernoth. Does mortal wounds. Also needs to be up at the end of the game for that grand strat.
May as well just say it scores you 3 points.
Right. Hey, now it may not. Unlike
there's a lot of Ionuses now.
Unlike Wall, you have to roll for Infernoth, so you could roll the 6 and it could dispel itself.
True.
Yeah. Is Spirit of Grimnir runes on 5? Okay, that's not bad. And a Grimwrath Berserker with the Magmalt Ale. Once per game, he becomes Gotrek. I like that.
Oh, good.
Warlord, Vanguard, Wizard Finders of Antor, because that thing just got buffed, and hey, that's a wizard, why not get some extra attack? Extra attack?
Yeah. And sometimes magic ignore.
Yeah. So, aside from the Celestant Prime, very common Fire Slayer list, I like the Prime tech. So, I like it. It's good. You can fit a ton of stuff in a Fire Slayer's list. Everything they have is super cheap now.
Mm-hmm. The only thing weird to me is the Arcane Tome. I get that he probably just needs a turn 1 Magic Dom. I feel like you might get a little more value out of the all the anti-magic tech and the extra battle tactic, but yeah,
It's in my experience of Fire Slayers, the turn 1 tactic's always the hardest, unless you're bringing Vanguard Hunters from Stormcast Eternals. So Fire Slayers don't have a problem scoring tactics turn 3, 4, and 5. It's the turn 1, and it's hard. A lot of missions you can't even get out of your deployment zone turn 1. So I that's probably why he's taking the Arcane Tome, and it's something I do as well.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right, but I like it. I think it's a good Fire Slayers list. Hopefully, with the buff from the Battle Scroll, Fire Slayers start to do a little bit better, at least locally here in Texas. Apparently, worldwide they do fine. All right, but I think that's good. Let's get to the next list.
Can we not do the next list? This is an abomination. I have no problem with Chris. Chris is an upstarting gentleman. No problem with him. But this list is abomination.
Okay, here we go. We knew it was coming, and now it's here.
We get to see it again later, too.
We do. We get to actually see it again. Okay, it's Vex Bomb. It points at a spot on the map, and that spot takes a lot of mortal wounds. I don't like to admit it. It does take some skill to pilot. You don't have a lot of damage throughout the entire game, unless you want to bring in your Annihilator slowly, pop your Meteoric Standards, and kind of fish for the perfect amount of damage. A lot of bad players will just throw everything and like hope that's enough to win them a game. But it's a very uninteractive list, which is, I think, everyone's problem with it. Your opponent can do nothing besides roll ward saves. That's the only interaction you get with this list.
Sort of. You can do some positioning shenanigans. It's not an obvious interaction for your opponent. Your opponent is setting an initial condition and creating a problem, and then the Vex Bomb is trying to solve that problem. They either succeed or don't, and after that point, the defender is basically just rolling dice to find out whether or not they are able to successfully survive. And a double turn could be even worse because there's a pile of annihilators that would then get to charge again and do their thing again.
Yeah.
So it's not that the other player has no control over the game at all. It is that once their position is set, it then becomes entirely the Vex player's decision of how the game is going to happen, and their decisions dictate everything. It's their game to win or lose.
Who? Oh, I don't see shit. If you just followed, thanks. Rockstarity. Yeah, Rockstarity, thanks. You're the best. But yeah, like Matt corrected me, you do have your deployment phase to kind of counter this list, but sometimes that just don't work, or sometimes you just ain't good enough to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
If you don't have a high enough ward save, or just get lucky enough, then sometimes it'll just run you over too.
Yeah. All right.
Peyton, thank you for following us, and also Trogboss, thank you for pinning Vex Bombs for suckers.
Right. All right, let's get the next list.
There's always a man of culture, Sika.
I think you're fine, Shelly, if you're here. This is a perfectly good list.
He is.
I disagree with everything. Terrible.
Yeah, let's go to the
next list. Yes, please. All right. Joe, you're grudging this list. I'll leave this one to you, despite the fact that I like cities.
Right. Okay, so it's Sento. It's my boy. Me and him have been at it for like 7 GTs in a row now. He might get me this time, but damn it if I'm not going to try. So, Hollow Heart, that's the, bonus to cast, but if you cast too well, you take damage?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get an extra 3d6, but over 10 or higher, you get reflected damage.
Right?
You get to be immune to miscast, though.
Right? All right, let's see. Banners held high. Have more banners than your opponent at the end of the game. Kind of good. Warforger, Blizzard and Horrorfrost, Pontifex, Free Guild Marshal on Griffin, with the Warhammer. Another, Free Guild Cavalier Marshal for the Strike First with an Arcane Tome. Free Guild Marshal with a Relic Envoy. I don't know what the On Foot one does.
He basically points at a unit and gives it a free command point.
And then once per game,
yeah. Yeah, once per game, he can also use a heroic action to, if he rolls equal to or less, or just less, I can't remember. But he has to roll under the bravery of units. If he succeeds, they count as an extra model for contesting objectives. Interesting play, has some utility, but very situational, and it's hard to bank on it because you have to roll under some fairly low braveries for it to work.
Wild Core Hunters, they're pretty neat. 30 Steel Helms, I like it. 5 Cavaliers, more Wild Core Hunters, and Command Core. It's a fun list. I like it. It's kind of a mix of City's good stuff plus a little bit of LVO Championship.
It's a solid one, yeah. It's got a lot of answers that your opponent has to try to juggle, because everything in this is a threat. The Steel Helms are obviously just the anvil, but everything else is going to be a legitimate threat if you ignore it. And all of it works really well together.
Yes. Especially having come from a series of very elite lists, looking at one where just off the cuff, this looks like 70-ish models.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I like it. I think it's an interesting take on cities. Um, Left the Fusiliers at home, so thank you, Sinto. I might have a chance. I'm not gonna die in one phase. All right.
You will
With
get to
the
do a lot of damage.
Right.
with the shift to what's called the Warforgers ignite weapons not working on shooting anymore, I actually kind of like Wilder Core Hunters. They
Hmm.
can get Ren 2, Ren 3 fairly easily in most games.
Hmm.
And the problem you've run into in Fusiliers is now that if someone has armor, they're not going to do the damage you're expecting them to.
Yeah.
Switching over to something with Ren seems like a good way to answer that problem, though typically the Wilder Core having shorter range in a pregame move feel like they are asking you to be their front line, so you may not have them as long. Fortunately, by the time you're starting to lose them, you can countercharge the Cavaliers and fix that problem a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean the free beginning of the game move, you don't have to take that to move just straight up. You can to ping some shots out or screen as much as you need, but they're also invisible if they're on terrain. That's really good.
Yeah.
But they don't even have to be on
Yep.
it anymore, just within an inch.
Yep.
Ugh. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's an interesting cities list.
Hmm.
All right. Let's get that next one going.
And it's right back to Stormcast again. There's a lot of Stormcast at the event, sounds like.
I think 7 or 8. All right. Astral Templars, you love it. Spellcasting Savant, Call for Aid, pretty simple. David Rodriguez, he's been kicking around with this Karazi list now for what feels like a year.
Yep, and he's been doing
Uh,
very, very well with it.
yeah, no, a lot of practice with it. Recently got a points drop. Kind of interesting change with like Ancient Masters of War. Now you pick a unit, and then they get -1 to their weapon profiles, where it was everything that was
Mhm.
swung at him. So interesting change.
Yeah, it's semi nerf, semi buff, more of a side grade than anything, but it's a lot easier for the opponent to play around now.
Yeah. Castellant for the automatic +1 to save. Arcane Tome for another +1 to save. Incanter for an auto unbind. Celestial Blaze for +1 to wound. And it's got the Shaman of the Chilled Land, so it's got Blizzard. Libs, Vanguard Hunters to do tactics and grab those very common outside objectives. And Tempesters, which are fantastic screening unit. Long strikes, which are going to keep heroes honest and within lookout sir range, and 6 praetors to
Mm,
keep Karazi safe. Good luck chewing through that, unless you're
yeah,
have a way to turn off wards.
Or you
yeah,
just Praetors directly.
Yeah,
That is a statement of if you ever targeted Karazai, you made a mistake.
yeah. Even with just 3 Praetors last time I played against this, like my Morghasts, who are the hammeriest hammer that I can hammer, just failed to kill Karzai. I think left him on like 5 wounds or something, so not even terribly close.
yeah.
He is ridiculously durable when he's got all of his buffs going.
Mhm. No, Warlord for Thunderbolt Volley plus Call for Aid. Like I said, keep your hero safe. Keep them within lookout sir, or they're going to get got by those long strikes. Or if he needs to punch a hole in a screen with Thunderbolt Volley plus another round of shooting plus those Tempesters.
Oh, he's got double call for aid? Okay. Or double enhancements.
Yeah,
Yeah, second Holy Command.
Okay. Yep. Not bad.
no, I like it. Something similar I ran to, had some good success with it. I'm glad to see he's continuing to run it and have good success with it.
Mhm.
All right. Let's get the that next
Ooh.
list going.
Sylvaneth up next, and an Alario list at that.
Right?
Yup. The interesting one
I
this
am
time.
I am very surprised that you can fit this many big heroes into a list and still actually have room left for other models.
Right?
All
Hey,
right, so Looking at David Westfall, Sylvaneth, Gnarl Root. So once per turn can get a extra dice for cast and unbind. Overshadow, the Reaping. So actually, the 12-inch tree teleports. So they can arrive and depart from Wildwoods at 12 inches instead of 9.
Does it have a
Triumph
downside
is
to it, or is that
bloodthirsty.
a different one?
You're thinking of Everdusk, where it
That's
goes
the one.
down to 6, and that's the downside. But you get exploding 6s for all your melee profiles. So as far as the actual army itself, we've got Beltharnos, Alariel, and a Spirit of Durthu. Command trait is Warsinger. Artifact is Greenwood Gladius. Benjamin, thank you for following us. Sorry, I missed that a second ago. We've got 2 units of 5 Tree Revenants, 2 units of 10 Dryads, a Spite Swarm Hive as an endless spell, and the Terrain Piece for free. We've got a Battle Regiment, but all 3 of those heroes are more than 10 wounds, so they are 3 drops. This looks like the Sylvaneth edition of Can I Get Close to Mega Gargants? Should be a lot of fun. Beltharnos allows them to run and charge, and Alariel was never slow. So this army can cover a lot of ground and kind of move where it needs to go very, very quickly. Tree Revenants are able to actually threaten objectives that get left alone, and Dryads can hold backfield objectives as well, or Suicide Screen. It's an interesting list, actually. On the surface, it looks like Unga Bunga throw the big stuff at them, but the reality is actually it looks like it's designed to run and charge, pick its flank that it wants to hit on, and then try to get out with what it can. Belthanos is hard to kill, so he can actually afford to stick around if he has to. Durthu's probably going to kill whatever he hits. Alariel needs to be babied a little bit early in the game, because if she doesn't die in the first 3 turns, then she's just invincible and can be reckless. It's interesting. It looks like Mega Gargants, except that if you ever leave an objective alone, it's just David's. Like that's just what happens. So you can't focus on it the way you would a Gargant list, where you just focus one big threat down with your whole army, because something just shows up wherever you vacated.
Yeah, she's got the back pocket summon for whatever. I'd imagine for this build, it'd probably just be a Tree Lord Ancient for an extra free tree to give you an escape route. Belthanos allowing you to have your teleport option for the turn be your egress instead of your ingress is super, super hard to deal with if you don't position well. Normally, fairly weak to death armies just because they have board presence, but this doesn't care particularly. And just everything in it is tough as nails.
No,
On the
not
pieces
unique.
that are going to be doing work.
I think Overshadow, small tangent, I think Overshadow with Tree Revenants is pretty funny. Like, as long as you can make sure to kill their battle line, those Tree Revenants are never going to die.
Yeah, not much is tracking them down.
Small correction, Alariel can't summon Tree Lord Ancient, just a regular Tree Lord.
Oh, okay.
No
But
hero.
it still feels like a chance to get Forced Strike last is probably going to be the right call. You don't have Heartwood or all the extra synergies for Kurnoth Hunters, and you already have 2 units of 10 Dryads. You might pull up the inflatable raft of Dryads one game. You already have 2 units of Tree Revs, so I don't see them, unit 10 of them being worth summoning. It's going to be the Tree Lord, just by process of elimination.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want some Golpe Dramatico? All right. So, it's good stuff. I'm glad that we have our Alariel. That means we have one of every god model showing up with this GT. So maybe someone will get that bounty. All right. Chairgrot, next list.
It's a rival Dillon.
Oh, God. Not this guy.
Right. Oh, it's another Matt.
More Sylvaneth.
Do it again.
All right. So this time we're in Heartwood, which is you get to choose 3 units at the start of the game and get +1 to hit against them for the whole game. Melee, shooting, regardless of range, just it's a debuff. It's on them. Nothing can be done to remove it except for running out of blood and dying. Also, Heartwood makes the Kurnoth Hunters battle line. Grand strategy is spellcasting savant, so our general is a Arch Revenant with an arcane tome. Fair enough. Need to keep her alive through the entire game. Shouldn't be too bad. Easy enough to hide near other units or in a tree. Triumph is inspired, which at 1990 points probably not going to come up, but rolling battle shock for Kurnoth Hunters is always a terrifying prospect when you have to do it, so not a bad idea to have a way out. Once again, the reaping, so 12-inch range for teleports. We're looking at another Belthanos list with Drycha this time and a Spirit of Durthu, so 3 big stompy monsters to start the list off. An Arch Revenant to provide support for the Kurnoth Hunters, +1 to Wound Bubble, and a command ability for +1 to attacks. A War Singer list, so War Singer for +3-inch movement and run in charge from Belthanos means this has a crazy long engage range. Even Spirit of Durthu as a 5-inch move normally is on average going 11-ish inches to move and then charging afterwards. So he will most likely be able to dictate engagements from outside of range. We've got a Branch Witch with Vesperal Gem and Verdant Blessing, so automatically casts a Verdant Blessing without having to roll the dice. 1 in 6 times will, free battle tactic, can't even unbind it. And then 1 in 6 times will take D3 mortal wounds in exchange. Sure. And if you get close, actually has a scary AoE spell. Battle line is 2 units, 10 Dryads, a unit of 5 Tree Revenants, and a block of Kurnoth Hunters with great swords. Looking like the points cost prohibited that from being scythes. Typically, I prefer great swords in 3s, scythes in 6. That 1-inch range can be rough on 50 mil bases. But the scythes are more expensive, so it had to be great swords. Makes sense to me.
Great swords
Battle
give
Regiment.
you a little more damage diversity too.
Yes.
But I understand the pick. It's just much harder to engage with them that way.
Yes, exactly. It's not a bad call by any means. It's just I personally prefer if finding the points for the scythes if you can, but the points don't work out in this list, so it makes sense. Battle Regiment and a Warlord, the extra widget being the Vesperal Gem. We've got 2 artifacts, Arcane Tome and the Gem. Looks like this is going to be a fairly straightforward I can see Durthu and Belthanos both being punchy pieces. Drycha is a shooting platform, despite what the model looks like. And then the Kurnoth Hunters with Greatswords provide a third punchy threat. So you've got basically this looks like it wants to brawl and then find what is in the most exposed position and get it out of there. Probably Durthu is the most. His points are invested in damage rather than defense, whereas Kurnoth Hunters are durable. Belthanos is durable. Drycha has range to protect her. And then Dryads are just screens, Tree Revenants. If they ever got attacked, they were sacrificed for a reason or just out of position. Should never be able to hit those for free.
Yep.
So yeah, it looks like it wants to kind of lock, grind, and use positioning in order to dictate engagements with all the extra movement.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's I think it's a perfectly fine Sylvaneth list.
I agree. Makes sense to me. Looks good.
All right.
All right. Next list is looking like one of our fellows from the show here. Joe, you want to take Eli's list?
This guy.
Oh God, his list. I hate some
I don't want
list
to talk
format.
about Starborn.
Right? Some list format just awful. All right, Seraphon, Starborn, Fangs of Sotek, Spellcasting Savant, Indomitable. All right, Astral is Bear. We have Skink on Troglodon. Some people say don't take it. Elias is like, no, I'm taking it, and does well with it. We have Lord Croak. Everybody hates him. Some people love him. Slan Starmaster. That's Diet Croak. And then there he is, Skink Scars here for the speed of Huanxi. 2 units of skanks, units of Sarsguard, got another unit of skanks, and then we have a Bastillodon with an Arcasotek, and then we have Malevolent Maelstrom. So a little bit different than typically what Eli has been running, but I think with the recent Battle Scroll changes, he had to switch it up a little bit. But
if I
this
remember
list,
correctly, he had some not Agrodons, Raptidon, the
yeah,
skinks on the mounted skinks. They
yeah,
had to be
Yeah.
downgraded to regular skink.
yep.
Which is
Uh,
fine. He can summon them in later if he absolutely needs them. But having played against this an ungodly amount of times, it is a really difficult problem for people to solve. It's going to dump, even with the Troglodon nerf, it's going to dump 30 to 50 mortal wounds in your face turn 1, depending on how you position. Or, I mean, assuming he doesn't miscast, obviously. The
Mhm.
plan is to sucker punch you so hard you can't really recover.
Yeah.
If he gets a double, most armies just can't deal with that unless they're very wounds dense or just tough as nails. The addition of the Bastillodon is really, really good. I hate that he found that. I was hoping he wouldn't, because it now makes that army much, much harder to bum rush and deal with.
Yeah.
Between that and the Troglodon, I know he likes to stack debuffs on the Troglodon in order to make it -1 to hit, -1 to wound. The -1 hits innate, and then throw a couple armor bonuses on it, and you just can't really kill it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looks like it should be squishy, and it's just not.
Yeah. Every
no,
time I've had to deal with it, it's taken a combination of like Morghast and Catacross, who are very beefy hero hunters, and they still barely kill the guy.
And the problem is you can't ignore it. You got to deal with it. Otherwise, the
Yep.
bomb just hits again next turn. So it's a
Mhm.
damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. Either you invest everything killing it, and still might not, which means it's a very easy finest hour for him, or you ignore it, you have it explode on you again, and the what's it called? His whole army is safe to just stay at range.
Yeah.
And once he starts having enough celestial conjuration points, between teleporting a Starseer in with Speed of Quan Chi to move itself into the position he wants, or if you've ignored the Troglodon, he doesn't even need to do that and make that sacrifice. It's just a pile of mortal wounds and a pile of mortal wounds and a pile of mortal wounds, and enough stall power that you don't really ever get to fight the frogs in the back.
Yeah. It's only got a couple weaknesses, and most of those are just hard counter armies that even then he can deal with very well, just based on the power of Croak in the Slan. It's a good one. It's going to give people a lot of trouble.
If you haven't played against it, that Maelstrom's gonna look pretty innocuous until it all pops the fuck off.
Oh yeah, that's almost priority 1 every single time to get rid of.
Well, the problem is
Alright.
that if it's cast and it's cast on a very large number, even if you dispel it, it still pops wherever it's standing. And the big thing about Maelstrom to remember in Starborn is that chip damage in this edition, as we talked about just before the show started, D3 damage is almost meaningless because of recovery and heroic recover and rally. 2d3 is potentially a burst threat, and over 2 or 3 turns will start killing things. 3d3, you have a real threat, and this whole list is just, but what if it was like 43 and then the second turn I throw a d6 on top of it? You start losing whole units and you have no support the entire game.
Yep.
Eli has killed all of my wizards turn 1. Rolled well on Comet's Call, and then Maelstrom pop for an automatic 3 damage on my wizards, and then all my heroes are dead.
The
Good
one
way-
Achilles
good way
list,
to
this
start.
the one Achilles heel this list does have is RNG, because he's casting like 10-ish spells a turn. You probably see at least 1, maybe 2 miscasts every game, and if Croak throws those for one of his first spells, it really does set him back a lot.
Yeah. No, it has to sucker punch you very early for it to last into the late game.
All right, but that's a good list, and we've spent the time we can. So let's get that next list.
It looks like we're up against Jaws neck.
Nice. All right.
All right.
Boy.
So Jay McBride, Jay obviously for Jaws because this is just sharks.
All right.
So, and I remember that Bloodthirsty Shivers format oddly that is 6 sharks, not 18 sharks.
Yes.
3 shark. Yeah, they're in units of 3. It's like the Nurgle thing where you pay for 3 of the same thing. They're all individuals. They're getting the buffs. Yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
but it is each of those is 1 shark.
One
6
individual
units of 1
shark.
shark. Yes.
didn't the battle scroll just recently mess with their exploding sixes?
Yeah, now it's auto wound. So if you roll a 6 to hit, it turns into an automatic wound. You still need the save rolls and everything. It's a side grade.
Right. But let's go about it. So, Dillon, are you familiar with this list?
Yep. So he's got Phaethon. That's what gives him access to the Bloodthirsty Shivers and the auto wounds. His grand strategy is protect the boat, so just have nothing near it. He's got a Thrall Master because this is a Chad and he brought 40 Thralls. He's going to be making them a lot more durable and a lot killier, depending on what he wants to do.
Mhm.
He's got the Teachings of Turskull on a Soul Render. I believe Soul Render is just going to be refilling those Thralls over and over. Arcane Tome for the battle tactic. I'll double check this, but I think the Teaching of Turskull is the Flip the Tide one, so if he really wants to, turn 2, he can full send and get his fight first on everybody.
Okay.
20 Reavers are just there for supporting fire, 40 Thralls are there for the follow-up punch behind the Sharks, or to just eat it for them so that the Sharks can keep doing their work. He's got it all in a 2-drop. This is gonna hurt a whole lot. It's got very good shooting threats, very good mid-range threats, and then once you close with it, you had better do it on the turn he's not fighting first, because everything here punches pretty decent.
Yeah.
This
The
is
one
also kind of an alpha strike. Like if you survive the first turn and you are durable enough to have killed a few things on that turn, you're gonna deal with it just fine.
Yeah, exactly. The armor saves in this list are not great. There's no turtle to make these Alapexes on a 3. The Thralls are on a 5. They will be able to use rituals to get themselves a 5-up ward some of the game. This is very much a can you get into the Alapexes and start lifting them? Can you kill the Thralls before they hit you? If you can do that, the game swings very quickly. I expect that this will be a lot of very short games, one way or the other.
Yep.
Nope,
The Sharks give you a little bit of staying power towards the end of the game, but they're also fairly squishy.
I've lost plenty of games to losing priority on either turn 2 to 3 and then having the tide flipped, or it just natively happen on a 3 and just get tabled.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, I love it. More Sharks, expensive list money wise to actually build.
Yeah.
So shout out. All right, let's get that next list.
And we're back to Stormcast again. You're sure this isn't just a lot of Stormcast in this tournament, Joe?
I promise it all evens out. All right, so Knights Excelsior. Knights Excelsior. So this one has a Star Drake. Like, come
What a
on,
man.
right? So, Master of the Celestial Menagerie, -1 to wound the Star Drake. He's got the hammer, Drake scale armor for rerolling saves against multi-damage weapons, 2s, 3s, 4s, not D3, because that FAQ sucked. Lord Imperatant, because we need to drop our dude 7 inches away. And we have a Lord Relictor for translocation. And heal. Very great priest. We have Grand Hammer Annihilators. We know what they do. Sequitors, they are side grades to Vindictors. They can get a ward, or they can get a little bit more killy. We have just a regular unit of Shield Annihilators, a unit of Gryph-hounds, which are a really good tech piece and come with a ton of attacks. We have a double stack of long strikes, so 6 long strikes. Praetors to help protect that Storm Drake when he's on our side of the board, and then Vanguard Hunters to help do objectives. I think it's an interesting way to work a Storm Drake undertaken model into a list and still build our list in a way that we can complete 5 battle tactics, because that's what you got to do to succeed with Stormcast right now.
Yeah, it's not bad. I like the Celestial Instincts is just the most underrated thing in the Stormcast book. It just has terrible targets most of the time. Putting it on a big old beefy Star Drake like that is making him a lot more of a interesting piece to take, a lot better of a threat.
Yeah, being able to, if you can ever get a double turn, retreat 14 inches and still be eligible to charge, can get him where he's not wanted.
Exactly.
Really good shooting in the list too. Like 6 long strikes plus the Star Drake actually is really good shooting. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It looks very unfocused because it's not really leaning into any one thing. You'd expect Knights Excelsior to be a whole pile of annihilators, but it's not. And it's doing it in a way that diversifies strengths rather than just feeling unfocused. So while at first glance I'm trying to figure out what this list does, the answer is it's being well-rounded. It's giving itself the ability to punch up close, take a hit, and play with threats from long strike shooting all at once.
you're right, Vince. He does not have a holy command listed. I don't know how Matt Taylor will fare to that. The boy wants a holy command.
Yeah, there's only really 2 that he'd be looking at anyway.
Yeah, still wants free
Yeah,
sequiturs.
exactly.
But no, took a Star Drake. Good on him. I hope he does well. Let's get that next list.
Okay.
All right. Well, what do you two talk about cities?
Ooh.
All right, Joe Vucic, I think it is pronounced correct. All right. We've got a Cities of Sigmar list out of Excelsis, so the monsters get an extra wound, and the Cavaliers do mortal wounds after they've fought, similar to a unit Kurnoth hunters, basically. Grand Strat is banners held high. Once again, have more flags than your opponent. Talia, faction locked to Hammerhall, so she won't benefit from the extra wound, but she still gets all of her other benefits. She issues 2 commands. She's punchy in close combat. She has a monstrous rampage that allows you to make other monsters which have charged fight last. A lot of good tech with her. Big fan. I love her. Run her in my own cities list. And she's recently dropped 40 points for reasons I don't understand, but don't question. Warforgers, they're Warforgers. They're double merciless blizzards. I do exactly the same thing. Can't argue with that. Cavalier Marshal, not a huge surprise at all in Excelsius. We will see the Cavaliers later. Command traits, Divine Champion, Prayer Hammer of Sigmar. So the Divine Champion prayer makes him a priest, and the Sigmarite Warhammer is going to give him +1 rend and +1 damage on his melee profile. Pontifex because Pontifex. And then into the heart of the list, we've got a reinforced unit of Cavaliers, so that's 10 Knights, a unit of Steel Helms, and then another reinforced unit of Cavaliers. And then as other pieces, we have a Command Corps, because of course we do, a Scourge Runner Chariot. It's fast, it moves around, it shoots, it does things, and it's cheap at 80 points. Unit of Vanguard Hunters, which look like they are there to fix the fact that cities struggles with battle tactics by doing surround and destroy. And then as far as battalions go, Andorian Acolytes and double Vanguard. So we are just saying, you know what? You can decide priority. You'll outdeploy me. That's fine. I'll have bonuses for whatever you decide to do. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This list has the ability to either go first or second fairly effectively because of the countercharge command, being able to throw those Cavaliers and the Free Guild Cavalier Marshal into a charging opponent and just disrupt the flow of combat is a big trick to make sure that it's not a big deal if your opponent just decides to alpha strike you. They still have to worry about you alpha striking them in the middle of their turn.
Yeah.
It's a lot to bank on with 2 big squads of 10 like that. If it's just me personally, I think the MSUs would have been a little bit better with this, but it's still got a lot of threats going on. It's harder to lift 20 wounds of Cavalier than it is 10. They are not the squishiest, but they're not the tankiest either. It does battle tactics fairly well. That Grand Strat's going to be hard-ish to deny. And the only thing that's confusing me is Talia over a Free Guild Griffin.
Mhm.
Yes, especially in Excelsis where he'd benefit from the extra wound. And you can just move all the command traits from that Cavalier Marshal over to
Exactly. Yeah.
the Free Guild General.
Yeah,
Then
she's not a
you
bad
get
pick by any means, but
70
it's just
points.
would have saved a couple points there, but
Yeah.
Not a ton. I think it might have been 70 before the points drop. Free Guild Generals are they really 230? There's no way they're really 230. They've got to be more than that.
No, they're like 270.
Okay,
it's
so
270,
saving
yeah.
30 points. It would have been 70 points difference before Talia dropped by 40.
Okay. I was thinking original points. Even though we
Yeah,
just
that
talked
would
about
make
it.
sense. Yeah, I feel like that might be I like this model. I'm using this model.
Mhm.
It might also be specifically for the fight last heroic action. There's enough heroes in this list that I don't feel like you need the bonus command.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Excelsis is pretty good.
yeah,
I'm good with that. If you're bringing this many Cavaliers, I think that's a solid choice.
yeah,
But
and
no,
yeah. The
good
Yeah,
call
the
out on
Cavaliers, the 1-inch reach is going to be the only problem on those bigs blocks. The
Mhm.
only reason to do it is extra wounds so you don't start losing attacks.
Mhm.
And because then the Excelsis activation, which Chad has pointed out, you're right, that is immediately after fighting, more like uh, Blood Sisters from Daughters of Cain than it is from Chronoth Hunters, which are at end of combat phase.
Mhm.
No. But no, I played against this guy. He's a good player. He does really well at all the events he goes to, so I'm sure that these choices are calculated, and I am interested to see how well he does. Because once again, since the cities changes, more interesting cities lists. This is why I was interested in cities originally. Stuff like this.
Mhm.
So, but all right, let's get to that next list. Let's keep moving on.
All right, next up we've got more Seraphon, Quaddle's Claw. So we're back in Coalesced.
Yep.
Looking at the list by John Franklin, Quaddle's Claw. So we're probably expecting a lot of Saurus and Agrodons here. Slaughter of Sorcery. Are we going to see another list without a slot?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
is this a
buddy.
list trying to suicide its slot? Either way, props. I love it. Triumph is Bloodthirsty, 10 points under, so maybe a reroll charge, maybe not. We've got a Saurus Scar Veteran on Carnosaur, General, War Spear, Vengeful Defender, and Sotek's Gaze. A Stegodon Chief with just the bow, and a Ripperdon Chief with the Pouch of Null Dust. So once per game, miscast on 1s, 2s, and 3s instead of just double 1s.
That thing's
Um,
fast too, so easy battle tactic.
yeah. Battle line is Agrodon Lancers, a unit of 10 Saurus Warriors, and 10 Skinks. And then a unit of 6 Ripperdactyls, a unit of 2 Stormdrake Guard as allies, and a Bastildon with Arc of Sotek. Whole thing fits into a single battle regiment, so it's 1 drop. Okay. So I'm not sure I'm not a fan of the Stormdrake Guard without reinforcing them. I always feel like that's a unit that needs to have that second helping of extra wounds to really get
Mhm.
to be scary. Um, it looks like this might be a mobility piece that's trying to hit a flank target, especially with those Ripperdactyls. Um, uh, the big brick of Agrodon Lancers looks like it's there to kind of tank the middle.
Mhm.
You've got a Arc of Sotek to also tank the middle. The Source Warriors are moderately tanky. Are they a base 3 up now?
4, but
They're
the
still
minus
4.
the damage is what helps them.
No.
Got it. Okay. And then a brick of skinks. That is, they're skinks. They're just gonna die.
Yeah.
But they're gonna die hopefully near an objective. It's fine.
Yeah.
The
2-drop.
Ripperdactyls are the Ripperdactyls are the interesting piece to me. They are consistently underrated and really, really good little threat piece.
Oh yeah, that's true. The Stegodon Chief has too many wounds to be a 1-drop. It's listed as a 1-drop. It shouldn't be.
Yep. 2 drops. 2 drops.
Dun dun dun.
All right.
No wizard lizard though. I am a fan of that idea.
All right. More of this stuff, just with the correct amount of drops. But yeah, no, interesting list. Anytime a Seraphon player looks at their truly amazing casting potential and goes, nah, we're good. I like it.
It really tells you something about the book that army-wide -1 to damage, no questions asked, is the inferior selection for most cases. But it's really cool when people decide to go ahead and actually use that because it turns out it's still incredibly good and it's a far more interactive game instead of just I'm going to do my damage and hold you at arm's length while I do my damage. This is a much more fun game to play. It's much more interactive.
Yeah, and
Should
it
be a fun list.
answers the death and ogres problem that everyone has been trying to answer for this event.
But yeah, interesting list. I like it. John Franklin, gotta watch out for your drops, brother. But let's get
Ooh,
off.
I did not catch 143 wounds with -1 damage. So
Yup.
that's what's going on with this list. Is it's just a brick of hard to move models.
Yeah,
The
I
Storm
mean,
Great Guard and the Skinks don't get that -1 damage, but enough of it.
about
Well,
half
no,
the
the
wounds. Yeah,
Ripperdactyls won't either. Those are Skinks.
yeah, about half the wounds are getting none of the help with the minus the damage. But
Okay, yeah. So that's a little deceptive of me just looking at it and saying blanket army wide rule, but it's not actually a blanket army wide rule. Just the source and monsters.
All right, next list.
More Seraphon, and these are the villains, the Starborn.
You know, I wasn't gonna say anything about Lonestar and drop issues, but yeah.
And it looks like Eli having abandoned the inclusion of Pontifo, the skink Pontifex. Someone else has picked up the mantle.
Yeah, so Astrolith Bearer for extending spells, Land Star Master for Diet Croak, Lord Croak for full flavor Croak, Pontifex for your heroes taking D3 mortal wounds, and a Skink Star Priest with Blizzard and Cosmic Crush. Skinks, Saurus Guard, more Skinks, and Ripperdactyls. And we're bringing Maelsome, Gravetide, and Pendulum. That's a lot of endless spells. Doesn't really have the fun sacrificial piece like the Troglodon to like get them all across the board turn 1. But I mean, you know, turn 3, depending on how many wizards he got up, is going to be really nasty approaching this.
Yeah, this is definitely a less focused on keep the other guy at arm's length and throw spells over the pinning units because it doesn't have the pinning units. It just has a Source Guard that has to be bodyguarding probably both the Salon, at least it's the start. The
Yeah.
2 units of Skinks, which are made of paper. The Ripperdactyls, which are fairly fragile despite being fast. Yeah, there's some thin screens here, but this is going to be very much you pop my screens. I hope to have the next turn and blow you away because there is a lot of stacked chip damage in this army, which, as stated earlier, the more chip damage you have, the more relevant it becomes. You're not just looking at the D3s from Croak's what's called Celestial Deliverance. You're not just looking at Comet's Call and the being able to crank up the engine. You're also looking at Pendulum. Maelstrom's another explosion. Pontifex is another D3 to your wizards and priests, which is a targeted hit, but your goal is kill all the support units before they play the game, and she's good at that.
Yeah.
So that's why Poserfex is here, just thrown into another Seraphon list. Other than that, it looks like it's the Starborn battle plan of blow you up with mortal wounds before the game happens. It, as stated, will invite you into the kill zone of getting close to Croak, and then try to finish the game there. All these merciless blizzards are set up to follow up on exactly that plan. This is a let you into 18 inches and then detonate you there instead of throw the Trog in front and let it blow you up.
That's it's interesting because we teleport the Starseer up, channel through him, and then have him speed a Hanshi up, have him do his celestial deliverance, like D6 explosion, plus Comet's Call, plus Pontifex. Our boy Jose does not want us starting the game with any heroes, it seems.
I suspect that speed of Huan Chi is only to go forward if he's got the conjuration points to blow him up, and otherwise it's to double back afterwards.
Yeah. But
yeah, this one is just hoping to not draw any ogres or iron jaws.
Yeah. This is the stuff we hate to see, but it it does well, so this is why it shows up. All right, let's get that next list.
You're sure that this isn't just real heavy on Stormcast Eternals, Joe?
I'm positive. All right, we do like three lists, and then we do a Stormcast list. It's good stuff. All right.
So you want to take this one?
Yeah, all right. Stormcast Eternal, Hammer Sigmar, 6-up ward, wholly within 12 of objectives. We have Spellcasting Savant, we have Inspired. Knight Incantor with Blizzard, Knight Incantor with Blizzard, Knight Zephyros with Arcane Tome, Lord Imperative. Good hero suite, double auto unbind, we'd love to see it. Knight Zephyros for teleporting over the map doing battle tactics, and being a wizard that can start basically outside of unbind range and then immediately jump to tactics next turn. So Tempesters, you see a lot of them because they're pointed aggressively and they're good skirmishing units. Double Liberators to act as our screen for those Tempesters. Aether Wings, because let's see, we have long strikes. There they are. So double Grand Hammers for damage. Vanguard Hunter. So turn 1, uninteractable battle tactic, because that Zephyros is going to start in the middle of nowhere. Turn 2, we're going to do Surround and Destroy. Turn 3, we're going to do 1 in each quadrant. So this list is built to skirmish and do 5 battle tactics, which is a perfectly respectable way to win games in Stormcast. So I like it.
The only thing that's a little weird to me, and I get that he's doing it because the Grand Strat is the Eater of Magic on the Zephyros instead of the Incantor. They're your dedicated get rid of spells I don't like wizard unit. I think sticking it on one of them is not a terrible idea.
I feel like with Merciless Blizzard, his goal with those Incantors is that they pop their auto unbind, they blizzard something at danger close range, and then they die.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and as you've already pointed out, the reason is then the Grand Strat. He wants to keep that Zephyros alive, and the Incantors are sacrificial trades.
Yeah.
It's really good. You walk up, you're like, I'm gonna get you, and it's like, but you had to walk into Blizzard range to do it. And if I win priority, you're gonna get Blizzard.
Yep.
Because we do have, we have Wizard Finders. So,
but we don't have the bonus. Wizard Finders is the anti-mage. It's not it's not Andorian Acolytes, so he's actually just casting that flat. There's no bonuses to that Blizzard roll, is there? Just cast flat and hope for enough primal dice from randomly generating primal dice.
No. We grab Thunderbolt Volley, Call for Aid, super common, so I like it. It's another Stormcast list that wants to shoot you, wants to skirmish, and wants to do 5 battle tactics. So, good stuff. That's how you win games. All right, let's get that next list.
More trees.
It's a lot of Sylvaneth.
I think we're up to 3 or 4 lists at this point. Not bad.
3.
It's a Sylvaneth always has this fairly decent showing. One of the comments that Rob the Honest Wargamer made, no matter whether Sylvaneth is doing well or poorly, people show up because it's just a well-loved and very, very easily recognized pretty army. So it sees a lot of play.
Yeah.
Which is great. So let's take a look at what Justin's running here. We've got a Heartwood list, so +1 hit against 3 targets, and the Kurnoth Hunters are battle line. There's a lot of Kurnoth Hunters, so that makes sense to me. Spellcasting Savant, so our general, who is a Warsong Revenant, is both hard to kill and needs to survive at the end. Good combination. Bloodthirsty Triumph, he's down 30 points, so decent chance he gets that. And the Dwindling, so we are looking at re-rolling a cast or unbind once per phase. There's some interesting interaction between that and Primal Dice, where if you've used the reroll, you cannot actually add Primal Dice. Leaders, we've got Belthanos for run and charge. The Warsong Revenant with Spell Singer, so he'll be able to cast spells through a Wildwood. Artifact of Power is a Seed of Rebirth, so in the event that you do kill that Warsong Revenant, the first time he gets to stand back up on a 2+. And his spells are Verdant Blessing and Virtuous Harmony. Verdant Blessing is for free on every wizard. Virtuous Harmony is that choose a unit and add a bottle to it. This can be an entire Kurnoth Hunter if he decides to cast on the Tree of Revenants. He gets D3 Revenants instead, but we know this is intended to be restore entire Kurnoth Hunter. And then we've got an Arch Revenant because you can't run more than a unit of Kurnoth Hunters without having an Arch Revenant to support them. Reinforced unit of Great Bows, reinforced unit of Great Swords, unit of Tree Revenants, unit of Gossamedes, and then the whole thing fits into a battle regiment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the only hero with more than 10 wounds is Belthanos. The Warsong Revenant has a 4-up ward, so he feels like he's 14 wounds, but it's actually 7.
I like it. Double Great Bow, that's a fun pick. You normally don't see reinforced bows.
Personally, I prefer using them as 2 units of 3s. I like Great Bows as a tanking anvil that happens to have a bow rather than an actual shooting unit. This army is using them as an actual shooting unit so that you can either all-out attack them or just shoot something that's marked from your passive and get them on from 4s and 3s down to 3s and 2s.
Mhm.
You still have to contend with only being 1 Ren.
They're a fun 5-up wound unit that also does mortals and screens, and sometimes does 4 to 8 damage in the shooting phase.
They only do mortals in close combat, just to be clear.
Yeah, they step on you.
Yeah,
They're
they have trample.
Bad
They're
dancers.
still Kurnoth Hunters. On average, they'll do 3 mortal wounds at the end of each combat phase. Yeah, it feels like we've got fairly standard early in the edition. It was basically standard to go into this game with 3 hammers, right? And in this list, it's Belthanos, the Kurnoth Hunters with great swords, the Kurnoth Hunters with great bows. The great bows are sort of a ranged hammer, but honestly, they're not bad in melee either. Most fights they'll be 2s and 2s, no Ren, 1 damage, but still 3 attacks, 2s and 2s.
Yep.
Gossamedes are a surprisingly frustrating unit for several armies.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And Belthanos means the whole thing runs in charges.
Yep.
Makes sense.
All right, I like it. Let's get that next list. Love me some Sylvaneth players.
And we're going straight into shooting.
Oh,
Hey,
good.
KO, we're here again. So now it's not bad. It's only the second one and the last of them. So
Hey, good.
Braknar, Rule the Skies, Fascist Rhetoric, moving down. Aether Chemist, he's here. Arcanaut Admiral. We have a Navigator with the Voidstone Orb. Company. 15 Thunders. We have 1 Ironclad. We have Soulsworn Questor, which is an interesting pick, and a Gunstar Caller. So this list, as compared to the last list, we traded Ionis for Questors and an Aether Chemist. So
My man's really wants his triumph.
Triumph. Yeah, I was gonna say that's 70 points under.
right, he he could have took something for that. But Soulstone Questers, those are fun. Aether Chemist plus Thunders, they're gonna shoot stuff.
The Nullstone icon makes sense on the Aether Chemist. As you pointed out earlier in Ashley's list, the Admiral needs to get out in order to do that extra battle tactic, but that Chemist wanted to get out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
solid. It's going to sucker punch you real good. It's going to score all of its tactics unless you table it.
Mhm.
It's usually going to get the grand strat no matter what you do, unless it runs into, well, competent OBR.
yeah. But no, I like it. This is doing what KO wants to do. Wants to do battle tactics. It wants to shoot you, and if given the opportunity, they will table you if you deploy badly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, I don't like it, but it's solid, and got to give it respect because you have to. You got to respect it.
Looks like a 1-drop as well. I see 3 heroes, 3 battle line, some non-battle line in the gun hauler, and the gun hauler isn't in a special slot, right? It's just troop,
Yes, it should be just a troop.
and the ironclad is a behemoth, so that's its own slot. Yep, that looks like a 1-drop battle regiment.
Yep. Nice. Nice. With a 70-point triumph pin. Saucy.
Right.
All right. It's hard to really talk about these. Talk about like lists like this because it's like it shoots you. It has all the tools to shoot you, and it does 5 battle tactics super reliably. So it plays the AOS part on point and also plays 40k. So best of 2 games.
Pretty much. Once again, I suspect that this is there used to be 1 more unit in this army, but the rounding error on losing half a unit from points upgrade means it's lost an entire unit instead of half a unit.
Yeah, he got a triumph, is what he got.
Yep. +1 to wound ain't bad.
Yep.
Moving
right.
over to some more Realm Lords. We're looking at a Ymetrica list this time around.
Ooh, that sounds fun. Let's get that next list.
All right. So spellcasting savant, because the whole army is wizards, so the general's probably a wizard. We've got Ymetrica, so instead of ignoring 1 rend, it now ignores 1 or 2 rend. Ymetrica got changed in effect. Do any of you remember what that fact was?
So all it did is instead of a really roundabout, weird way of dealing with the rend problem, it just now flat reduces rend by 2.
Okay. So it is now also effective against rend 3/4. It's
Yes.
consistent. All right.
Also,
is
we got to
a-
scroll down here. Looks like the stream isn't catching up. There we go.
All right, cool. All right, so Ymetrica slightly buffed, good. Triumph inspired at 1990, 10-point bid for +1 to wound, okay. Alor Stone Mage with Living Fissure. This is a synergy piece for the battle cattle that I'm sure we'll see later. Cenarian Lightner at 170. Okay, 2-cast wizard, a little bit more expensive, but you're getting 2 casts at 170. I think she has a +1 to cast on her War Scroll, right?
Who? The twins?
The Enlightener, not the twin.
I don't know if she has +1 to cast. I know she gets like a second spell.
Yes.
The double tap, yeah. Enlightener, she is no bonus on there.
It's a shame. Lore Master. Spells are overwhelming heat, protection of heat, Heesh, and speed of Heesh. So speed of Heesh is really good. Protection of Heesh really good. Makes sense. Lore Seeker. So can pop up somewhere after deployment outside of their own deployment zone, 3 inches away from enemy models, which is super weird. Silver Wand for extra cast Nunbind, and Merciless Blizzard. I wonder what the combo here is. Pop up 3 inches away and cast Merciless Blizzard. You were there at the start of the turn. It was at the start of the game where the guy showed up, so that's legal.
Right.
Severith, okay, interesting. Windy Bow Squirrel, good to see him. And into battle line, we've got a reinforced unit of Stone Guard, hard to shift and gets a ward save while contesting objectives. Wardens, nice screen, another unit of Wardens, another screen. Blade Lords to protect probably the Enlightener. My suspicion is that Lore Seeker's suicided after turn 1. Dawn Riders to give a otherwise relatively slow army some mobility, and an Alorith Spirit of the Mountain in order to actually cash in on that Stone Mage's synergy. Bunch of endless spells here. Hishian Twin Stones. Interesting to still see that. After I remember that got changed, didn't it? It used to be everywhere, and it has not seen as much use lately. What am I thinking here, guys? Any remember?
I don't remember what they did to Twin Stones.
Okay, it used to reset the dice back to 1, and now it just goes
Yeah.
away completely and reset. You have to recast it. Okay. So you couldn't just perpetually take a +1 to cast on everything that was near you, which you could do before. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So a way to get a big bonus to cast on the spell that's really important. Good way to actually secure a protection of Haish, which I think casts on an 8. Maybe that's just a 7. I remember it being harder. Anyway, Ravenex Gnashing Jaws, so basically a damage spell, and Sanctum of Amintok. Really?
Right. This is just some fun stuff, and I like everything about this Lumineth list. It's just weird, fun stuff.
I think that might be for the Lore Seeker. That would be why he has the Silver Wand. Set up the Sanctum. He's out of range of everybody else, so gets his own +1. He gets +1 from the Sanctum. And then he casts Merciless Blizzard and sees if he can make it to a second turn. Makes sense.
It just sticks in your way and gives you a nice little road bump.
I just think it's funny that does Sanctum still basically count as your base now, right?
It does, yeah.
Oh, that's extra range for Blizzard, baby.
I wonder if Sanctum is wide enough that you can put it and maybe fit it between some terrain or something and obscure the entrance to an objective so that even if you do charge and kill the Lore Seeker, he still prevented you from getting onto the objective that he popped onto. Oh, the point that's being made here is Blizzard gets measured from the Sanctum edge instead of from his base.
Yeah.
So the goal is to use Sanctum as a extender piece. I see the combo now. That's interesting. I hadn't realized that. Because he hasn't moved. He hasn't been set up. His base just got bigger.
Yeah.
That's really clever. I like it.
Neat. That's awful, and I hate it.
Right? Though
Well,
it's also being pointed out in chat that it's a 3-drop
does
list.
show up early, yeah.
The acolytes show up. So it's 3 drops. He doesn't necessarily control turn order. He can show up and say, "You really want to go first, right?" And you do have a chance to react and go first.
Yeah.
Now that does mean that you may have spent most of turn 1 just dealing with the Lore Seeker in your face, or you got Merciless Blizzard, whatever.
I just like the extra big Blizzard deck.
Yeah, that's clever. I had not thought about that until someone brought it up in chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some clever tricks to this. Some of the pieces are making more sense now that I can see it. The Twin Stones are there to yeet over to the Lore Seeker and get +6 to that Blizzard cast. The Sanctum Amintok is to bridge the gap between the Twin Stones and the target he wants to hit. Either you put them leaning his base bigger backwards so that you can reach the Twin Stones, or you push them forward to reach a target that your opponent didn't think you could reach. I get it now. That's really clever.
You Deep Thinkers Blizzard, bank your Primal, have Twin Stones for the bonus. Does he have Aether Quartz?
The whole army does.
Oh, yeah, there you go. What do you know? Why not auto cast a Blizzard on like an 18 or a 20? Turn 1.
Yeah, just turn 1. Yeah, I see the trick now. Okay, that's really clever. Just need to have a 2-drop list in order to be like, but I'm charging and killing that first.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a very low investment for that threat. And the rest of it is very, very good at holding objectives.
No?
Yes.
Uh,
That's a lot cleverer. I didn't see where that tech piece was. Now the weird picks all line up and make perfect sense.
Mhm.
all right, Mario. Thank you for letting us enjoy reviewing a Lumineth list. We
Yeah,
appreciate
that was really
it.
cool.
All right.
All right, let's move on to another one of these super rare Stormcast lists. Joe, you said there's not that many of them here.
There's
Oh,
not.
God.
It's only I only spaced them 3 or 4 lists apart.
All right. Well, I saw the Annihilators and was thinking it's probably Vexbomb, but I don't see the Night Vexilers, so it's not.
Nope. So Knight and Cantor, Lightning Blast for hey, closest thing I can see takes a D3 mortal wounds. Lord Imperatant because 7 inches away is better than 9. Lord Relictor because prayers are good and translocation's kind of mandatory. Shield Annihilators, Grand Hammers, Vindictors, 10 Vanquishers. That's fun. We got Aether Wings, 2 Stormdrake Guard, and some long strikes with crossbows. Some long strike crossbows. So maybe a little bit of I like Grand Hammers and this is my fun stuff that's painted going on here.
Looks like it. Sadly, we have a illegal Grand Strat. It's out of the core book. So that's just a quick little easy change.
Maybe. We don't know how the TO will allow this.
I will add it to
But
my list. Thank you, good cat.
right? Bold choice with Vendetta from the core though. I like it.
Yeah, it's solid though. Very very diverse in what it's going to be trying to do to you.
Yeah. No, it wants to come in with some grand hammers, do some damage, trade with long strikes and dragons, and 10 vanquishers just got 2-inch reach, so that's a lot of attacks. If they come across any kind of horde unit, they're going to absolutely destroy it. Any 10-man unit, they're probably going to blow it off the board. So cheap battle line, those vanquishers are just going to cut through. All right. But yeah, no, that's a fun Stormcast list. But yeah, Matthew, talk to the TO about your Grand Strat. We can't change it, but maybe he can. Let's get the next list.
All right, next up we're looking at Michael Ortiz. I played him down in San Antonio 2019, I want to say. It's been a bit.
Yep. All right. So Fire Slayers, Lofnir, so Magmadroth army, Masters of the Forge, have an invocation on the board at the end of the game, and Inspired for a Triumph. Rune Smiter on Magmadroth, that's an unusual choice, like straight up. Command trait Master Priest. Master Priest should be once per game, activate a rune that you've already used again, which I like. I use that. Volatile Brazier for the artifact, that's going to be the double the invocation casting range. Prayer for heal. We have an Arc Rune Master with heal, which is knows the whole lore, which is pretty relevant because it can let those Magmadroths fight at their top bracket, which is really good. We have Rune Father on Magmadroth, so slightly more slappy. The Rune Smiter has the Coalheart Ancient. That's going to be the -1 damage for that mount trait. Flamescale Youngblood. Which one is that one? I think Flamescale Youngblood is the always counted having like minimum of 5 units for their range attack. So there's our hero suite. We have a Rune Sun on Magmadroth with the Lava Tongue. Okay, no. Lava Tongue is the counts as minimum of 5 targets when you do the range attack. Magmadroth range attack scale on the amount of units and models in a unit. Volkite with sling shields, they're the cheap choice. Volkites with fire steel hand axes, extra attack on the charge. They have the flame spitter, which is a really unique, like, you never see the flame splitter in a list. Molten Infernoth, obvious good choice. And then we got Gotrek, which is awesome. So, really unique list going on here. You typically don't see all three Magmadroths in a list. Most people just kind of stop at two. They'll typically take, like, 2 Rune Sons or a Rune Father and a Rune Son. I like that you brought the Rune Spider on Magmadroth. That's cool. Gotrek's really cool. I think if you take Gotrek, however, you should always bring a Grimwrath. One of their odes is +1 to hit and wound if you're within 12 of an ally. So having Gotrek do his thing and then having a Grimwrath hitting and wounding on 2s, chilling out around him with Magmalt Ale. You pop the Rend rune and then do the heroic action with that one. You have, Rend 4, damage 2, 9 attack. Oh my god. Grimwrath, and then you have Gotrek right there next to him. It's a lot of killing and a fun investment to have those two. But Zagron Flame Spitter, I can't get over that. I feel like the wall would just be a better choice because you want your Magmadroths to have a ward.
Who needs that? Coward's way.
But no, good list. I like Lofnir. It's always fun to have Magmadroth lists out there kicking around. All right, so that'll do it for this list. Let's get the next list, Chergrot.
All right, looks like Marathian the Bow Snakes brought by Michael Wynn.
Oh boy,
beautiful army.
So, yes, looking forward to seeing that on the table again. We've got Daughters of Cain, Xanthar Kai, Grand Strategy, Bloodthirsty Zealots. So everything needs to fight or die. It's a battle tactic that Michael has to deal with rather than his opponent. There's not much you can do to stop it most games. However, it might force him to put some of his units that he does not want up close, like a Bloodrack Medusa, into a position where they can actually be interacted with in order to make sure he can do his battle tactic or grand strat. Triumph is Indomitable, which at a 40-point bid seems straightforward enough to get. And with big units of Bloodstalkers and Blood Sisters, I can definitely understand why he doesn't want to roll Battle Shock on them. Their bravery's good, but losing 3 or 4 models out of a big unit like that's a problem. We've got Marathi Kane and the Shadow Queen. She knows the whole lore of shadows, so no need to list which one she knows because it's all of them. And she's a unique character, so she can't know anything else. Sounds great. Bloodrack Medusa, General, Zealous Orator, Crown of Woe, all great choices. Spell is Hoarfrost. Okay, that makes some sense. Daughters of Cain has always struggled with Rend. Between Hoarfrost and Mindrazor, he's got 2 chances to make those Blood Sisters have some actually scary hitting power there. Or just, like throw it on Marathi's Crown of Serpents and have it be actually suddenly go from annoying to incredibly relevant.
Right.
Rest of the list is 15 Bloodstalkers, 10 Blood Sisters, 10 Blood Sisters, and a Battle Regiment to make the whole thing a 1-drop because this army really wants to control turn order. Most games looking to check, yes, you can't reach me turn 1. You may take the turn and I'm going to try to double turn you.
Yep.
Some games saying, you can reach me turn 1, but that means the Bloodstalkers can reach you. So we're going to punish you before you do anything. It's Marathian the Bow Snakes. Xanthar Kai makes the Bloodstalkers and Blood Sisters battle line and also lets them fight on death. We've seen this list since slightly before 3rd edition because it came out in its first iteration with the end of with what's called Broken Realms of Marathi. And it's been varying levels of strengths and weaknesses based on kind of what the rest of the field looks like. It still has a lot of punch. A lot of other lists in the meta have caught up to its previously overwhelming firepower. But if you don't have an answer for it and you can't prevent the Bloodstalkers from hitting you, or you can't find something to chip Marathi to death, it will just blow you off the table and call it a day. We've mentioned a few lists that are not necessarily bad, but tend to have fairly short and sweet games. Daughters of Cain will break you or break, and that's just the way the army tends to roll. The once in a while you get a game where both armies are obliterated and fighting with shards of glass in the dirt on turn 3, but most of the time one of you is getting tabled.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. With
Doc's
the amount of Ionuses floating around, I'm not the biggest fan of taking a Marathi anymore, and Doc suffers from the very, very, very glass cannon problem. So we'll see how he does. There's a lot of very bad matchups and a lot of very, very good ones for him.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, but there we go. That's That's our only Daughters of Cain list, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, just one. There's more
That's
Lumineth
that's
than Doc.
that's rare for Texas. It always used to be that our meta swapped the numbers for Deepkin and Daughters of Cain. The rest of the world, especially Europe, was very heavy on Deepkin, and we were very heavy on Doc with very few Deepkin, and we appear to have uh, either caught up with Europe or traded place with them. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. All right, Chairgrot, give us the next list.
Speaking of Deepkin,
Is it another Futhwen? Futhwen?
Yeah, but this one's
Iron
Rack,
Rack.
and
All
this
right.
is 2019, the list.
All right.
So we've got Protect the Boat again. We've got your Smash King, mostly all the way Smash King, not 100%. We've got Lotan for a +1 to wound bubble and point at somebody and give them their ritual bonus, regardless of when it is. We've got a Tidecaster to give you Hoarfrost, because that's the best thing it can possibly do. And then we have all of the eels. If you played in 2019, this is very familiar. It's just going to punch you real good. It's going to dump a lot of mortal wounds in your lap, and it's going to hope that there's not a whole lot left to hit you.
And there's a turtle down there.
There is a turtle.
at the bottom too.
The turtle is going to make this a little bit more durable and give you somewhat of a follow-up. If you're into anything that does any amount of mortal wounds, this is going to fall apart real quick if it doesn't dumpster you on turn 1.
Yeah. No. Ishlane are the cannot be rended if they charge?
One of
They
the two.
can't
I
be
think
rendered
it's an
all the
Ishlan.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, Ishlan can never be rended. On the charge, they become a 3-up save unrendable instead of a 4-up unrendable. Morsar are the lances, so they have better attack profiles on the charge.
Mhm.
And once per game, whether they charge or not, they can do mortal wounds before I think start a combat.
Start a
Okay.
combat and a charge, one of the two of those, yeah.
One of the awkward problems with Hoarfrost in this list is that all of those eels are 3 different profiles, and you have to choose what you're casting Hoarfrost on as soon as you cast it. You select the weapon profile, then you get to roll for what it gets.
I'd imagine he's doing it to the mounts because the Achillean's already helping everything that isn't a mount.
The mounts are even split into 2 profiles.
They're all one now. That was the last book. There were 2
Oh,
different ones.
okay, that's not so bad then.
Yeah.
All right. So seems like we kind of a blast from the past. I've played against Deepkin maybe 3 times, and it was eels, and then it's been sharks for like the last 3 years.
Give it a
So,
few weeks, I'm going to be rocking around with 1,000,000 thralls.
do it, you won't. All right, but so we got chat does not seem to like this list. I like it, as long as it's painted cool. But let's get the next list here, right?
All right, I think we're up to 4 or 5 Sylvaneth lists now.
I think this is our last one. I think this is the 5th one.
Okay. So Paul Kohler has a Heartwood list. So once again, 3 targets get +1 to hit, and Colonel Thunder's a battle line. Grand strategy of Overshadow. So have battle line and get rid of your opponent's battle line. Triumph of Inspired. So 10-point triumph bid for +1 to wound once per game. And Season of War is once again the Reaping. So the 12-inch range on all of the Wildwoods instead of 9. We've got another Ilaria list. Love it. Glad to see her out again. Belthanos, okay, run and charge. Spirit of Durthu, probably stands right next to Belthanos and enjoys that run and charge. And a Branch Witch with Verdant Blessing and Hoarfrost. The artifact is Greenwood Gladius on Spirit of Durthu and Warsinger for the plus 3 inches of movement. So once again, Durthu cruising an average of 10 to 11 inches, and being able to hit for plus D3 attacks, I think it is, on Greenwood Gladius for that big 6 damage swipe.
Yeah.
Battle line is 2 units of Tree Revenants and a unit of Dryads. So we really are just playing Heartwood for plus 1 to hit against a bunch of targets. We don't have anybody to give Durthu a special command that he would need otherwise, like an Arch Revenant for plus 1 attack or anything like that. So this feels like just trying to save command points on all-out attack. And then Endless Spell is a Vengeful Skull Root. Battle Regiment, we've got 3 big heroes, so that's going to be a 3-drop army. Honestly, Overshadow with the fairly squishy battle line. I know Tree Revenants are elusive and can hide from things. The problem they run into is shooting, especially the Sylvaneth Mirror, where you're like, I'll just hide in a Wildwood, and they're like, I can see you, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the Skull Root take is pretty interesting. We haven't seen that Endless Spell since basically the book dropped, when they used to be able to like channel everything through a tree.
Yeah, so the Vengeful Skull Root is I think it's actually D6 damage or something like that. I can't remember if it's D3 in an area or D6, but it also does bonus models flee if you cause models to flee nearby it. He has Alariel, so he has a decent number of casts between Alariel and the Branch Witch. The Branch Witch looks like she wants to be casting Hoarfrost on probably Durthu, looking to make him either wound on 2s or be Ren 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like this is Monster Mash Sylvaneth Edition again. I feel like the Monster Mash Sylvaneth Edition that we saw earlier had a few more techie pieces to it than this one does. This looks much more, I have more buffs on Durthu, and I need to deliver my scalpel and get him out of there. And the reaping is just to let him go a little bit deeper on that hard commit charge, get an alpha strike, murder something incredibly dead, and pop back out. Belthanos is still a very efficient pinning piece. Alariel is a all-rounder until the end game. If she hasn't died, then suddenly she just gives absolutely no consideration to where she is on the board. She's just invincible and doesn't care if she's a danger.
No, it's this like Alariel, Belthanos, Durthu, or like some flavor of like 300-point named hero, like triple 300-point named hero, in some battle line seems to be really popular in Sylvaneth right now.
Yeah, there's a it sounds like Benjamin in chat is saying that somebody went 5-0 in Europe with that formula for a list. Though realistically, the one big hero, maybe second big hero, build rest of list around that block has been basically the Sylvaneth game plan ever since this Battle Tome came out.
Yeah. Hey, I think with the Battle Scroll, though, they could afford that third big 300-point hero.
That's true. Alariel came down a lot. Well, she came down a bit. She's expensive enough that I think that was only like, she lost 40 points, so it's a 5% drop. It looks like a big number, but it's still only a 5% reduction. You're really looking at a battle scroll and asking who got 10, 20% reductions. Those are the characters that are suddenly, let's reevaluate. A 5% drop is nice. It probably frees you up for a that endless spell.
Yeah. I feel like that endless spell should have been Spite Swarm Hive or just a 60-point triumph bid.
I could see an argument for either one of those. I don't think you've got enough shooting and ship damage in this army to really capitalize on the Skull Root. Though if Alariel is playing danger close and stays there for a turn, knowing she might come back later, I could see that getting thrown out as I've commit hard, and now here's some more mortal wounds to follow up on it. Maybe trying to break some frontline screens or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting list. Let's get to the next one and see what that one's got for us.
Sounds good. We're looking at some Greywater Fastness from Cities of Sigmar here. Ronnie Thompson actually declaring his mortal realm as Gyron. Okay,
Brave.
fair enough. Grand Strat, banners held high. Wait, is Greywater Fastness actually in Giron?
Is it?
Beats me.
I don't feel like it is. I can't remember. Probably Akshi, because it feels like every city's in Akshi. It is actually in Greywater. Greywater is in Giron. Thank you. Okay, so it's appropriate.
Fair.
I'm sure Alariel's thrilled about this.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
Triumphs inspired, so +1 to wound. Grand Strat, have more flags than your opponent. Leaders, we have Warforger with Maestro Vivetti's Magnificent Macroscope, so plus D3 inches to the range on units near him for shooting. Horfrost, fair enough. Free Guild Marshal with Relic Envoy, so free command point, and he's the general with Master of Ballistics. When he issues all-out attack, the unit that receives that order also gets +1 to wound. Greywater Fastness allows you to issue the all-out attack command in the shooting phase 3 times. Master of Ballistics also only works in the shooting phase, by the way.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that you can issue all-out attack 3 times, but that Marshal can still only issue 1 command per turn. So the first one, or whichever one he issues, will get the benefit of +1 to hit and to wound, but all the other all-out attacks are still just +1 to hit.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got Galen and Dorelia Vendensed. Minor quibble here. Dorelia is not actually a leader, correct? She's a unit.
She's a hero, but not a leader. So I think that's actually an illegal battalion.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm
yes,
looking
she's filling
now.
a command.
She's filling
So
a spot that needs a leader.
yes, there's enough other leader options there that you could switch this around and still work, though, because we've got 2 heroes in that. Well, it's going to increase the drop
Battle Rag
count
needs it
by
too.
1,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah, and
she doesn't fit in any battalion. Is the way this works, and move one of the other
yeah,
Pontifex over.
Yep.
So we can fix it, but it does need to be fixed.
Mhm.
Net result is going to be +1 drop. All right. Arcane Tome for the Free Guild Marshal and the Macroscope. So there's your 2 artifacts.
Yep.
Pontifex, because Pontifex is an excellent pickup, and she's got that +1 or 3 up to give a 5 up ward to the whole army. Sounds great. All right. 5 Free Guild Cavaliers, 30 Fusiliers, 10 Free Guild Steel Helms, 10 Free Guild Steel Helms, Wilder Corps Hunters, a Steam Tank, and a Free Guild Command Corps. And then the core battalions need to be revisited a little bit, but generally they'll work out. It's listed as a 5 drop. It'll probably go up to 6.
Is his command core 30 points cheaper?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah, that's
wrong
the
one.
old price for command core. So that's
And
off.
the points are all wrong. Alchemite's also the wrong points.
Yeah, he should be down to 100, right?
Yeah, and the steam tank goes up.
Yeah. Okay. So this list is just built pre-War Scroll.
Yeah.
And built incorrectly pre-War Scroll. Okay. So we've got some issues that need to be resolved here.
Ronnie.
I wonder if we add the actual points up, if the points are actually correct and they're just listed wrong, because I've seen that happen before too, where someone doesn't update the points, but the total list is the correct point value. But because they're listed per unit, it would definitely be worth correcting that either way, just to sort this out. This is definitely a list that needs to be reworked a little bit. So skipping that problem, what we're looking at is basically you got a unit of Free Guild Fusiliers. They are probably the recipient of that Master of Ballistics increase to wound. You've got a steam tank that's also going to get all-out attack from being in Greywater, and you've got probably the Wildercore being your third choice for. Well, you've got Doralia. Doralia probably gets +1 to hit. Maybe the Wildercore Hunters, maybe Doralia. You've got 4 different shooting units.
Yeah.
3 of them are getting +1 to hit. 1 of them's getting +1 to wound. It's always going to be the Fusiliers getting +1 to wound.
Yeah.
That Free Guild Marshal is attached to them at the hip to give them that buff. Beyond that, it's a lot of shooting. It's some light screens, a little bit of combat from the Cavaliers, but honestly, this is mostly just saying I need the steam tank and my bubble wrap screens from the Steel Helm to keep you at arm's length. The Wildercore is of bubble wrap as well. Buy one turn off the cheap units, countercharge something with the steam tank to buy another turn and screen with the command core, and just gun the other guy into the ground.
Yeah, this is what we all hope gets matched into KO round 1.
Right.
Because it handles these shooting threats very, very well.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that covers it for this list. I'll add that to my list of things to poke Matt about, and we'll go from there.
All right, cool. All right, Chergrot, to the next one. I think we're actually getting really close to death, so if y'all are tired of order, we are almost free. All right, Seraphon, Fangs of Sotek, Spellcasting Savant. Croak, Diet Croak, Skink Starseer, Skink Star Priest, Saurus Astless Bear. Yep, that's the thing again.
Eater
Double
of Magic
Source,
on the slan is pretty hilarious.
right? Double Saurus Guard, I see he's feeling adventurous. We got 10 Skinks, 10 Raptidon Chargers, Pendulum, Maelstrom, Gravetide. We have Wizards Battalion and extra spell for everybody. Yeah, no, we Chad's right. We have seen this and we've seen it because it works. Like all this stuff works really well together. Has a bunch of saucy tech. It'll blow you off the board turn 1, kill all your wizards. So
I was hoping that the lizard players wouldn't realize that Eater of Magic was a good command trait.
right. So Seraphon's unique. They can channel through their own guys. So it's pretty interesting. They get a free spell portal. So, but yeah, no. We've already seen this list before, and we've seen something like it before as well. So, good list. It'll probably do well. Let's get to that next list. More Deepkin, Iron Rack.
Oh my god, we got 2 eels.
Okay, it looks like he traded a turtle for just twice as many eels.
And a Volturnos, okay. So, yep, he's got the reverse the tide, so we're going to hit you really, really hard on turn 2 and get a whole bunch of bonus attacks for hitting you really, really hard on turn 2. This is the exact same idea. We just have a lot more punch and no Smash King.
Right. Kind of sad to not see a Smash King. That thing's always funny when it pops off.
Yeah, I get the idea. Volturnos gets it for free, and I don't really have to care if a whole lot else is going on. He gets some magic ignore. He's perfectly fine for this kind of a pick. This is another of those. I'm going to punch you in the face really hard and hope it's enough.
Yeah. And he's bringing twice as many eels, so maybe it'll be enough.
Yep.
All right. So we've seen essentially the same list. So let's get to that next list. I don't hate it. More eels are good. More Deepkin players, please. All right. Here's that other Vex Bombs list that we were talking about. We've already discussed this and what its game plan is and how except this one he was a little braver. Okay, we got the double reinforced Grand Hammers. So there's a little bit of
And a
fight,
Celestant Prime.
right? But yeah, no, we've gone over all of this. We know what it does. Watch your deployment zones. Be careful. Don't get within like a 12-inch bubble. Like that's just how you're gonna lose the game. So let's
Yeah,
get
this is
to
a set your original deployment and see what happens. And I believe with that we are actually done with Stormcast Eternals.
right.
And Order.
So
Yeah, one more list in order.
let's
Oh.
get to that last list. All right.
Oh.
Fine. Seraphon did it. They ended the order and they ended it on a relatively high note.
Minus the Grand Strat, yeah.
So
Hold the
Coalesce,
line. Okay, yep, I'll add that to my list.
Coalesce Thunder Lizards, Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, Skink Oracle and Trog, love it. Saurus Warriors, Stegodon, more Saurus Warriors. We have a Bastillodon, and then we got an Engine of the Gods. Honestly, this is fine. Engine of the Gods is kind of a weird pick. That got
Means
hurt.
is brave.
It is. This is definitely not what it used to be. One book ago, so very interesting to see the Engine of the Gods on the table. I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily like it. But if it's what you got and you want to bring monsters, bring it. So
There
all
are
right.
actually more Nagashes than Engines of the God at this tournament. Amazing.
There are more Nagashes. Okay. We're finally free from order. Chairgrot, bring us home.
Hey, that means we only had 2 Starborn lists, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Nice. Lots of Seraphon actually playing Coalesced. That'll be a much more interesting game.
Dillon, roast him.
All right, so we've got Vince. He's bringing out classic Legion of Blood. Got a good, fairly reliable Grand Strat. We've got a pair of Vampire Lords who are just here to. Oh my God, we've got a Spirit Gale. That is a bold choice. Okay. We've got the Vampire Lords. They're here just to do good magic. The big star of the show is Neferata and her BFF, the Velocita, who does not care about your rend. He's gonna come up here. He's gonna punch you real good, and he's gonna stay around forever unless you have just an ungodly amount of mortal wounds. And I hope you do, because Neferata's gonna do the exact same thing while also debuffing you.
Yep.
We have a bunch of little nerd skeletons who just stand in the way and die for you. We got a pendulum to add some damage diversity to the list, and we've got 10 Blood Knights to run around, and they'll do okay amounts of damage, but they're, again, mostly here to get in the way and make the stars do their job.
Mm-hmm. I think Blood Knights inside of Neferata's -1 to hit is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty durable.
Yeah,
And
especially if they get ethereal.
Right.
If they get the ethereal from her, they're another very good little anchor piece.
Remember when for an entire edition they could be on a 2-up unrendable with her spell?
Oh, that was so much fun.
And then they got a new book and people were like, this is unacceptable. How did this make it through playtesting?
Yeah, it's solid. Double battle regiment, acolytes. He's going to be doing very good, reliable magic, which you really, really want with Neferata.
Yep. It may sound really weird, but I think like when it comes to Soul Blight, the most interesting talking point about lists is our battle line selections.
Mm-hmm.
With the nerf to Grasping Dead, what we take as battle line now is actually kind of relevant. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do we have access to Callous Overlords? Can we do Grasping Dead? What's our chances of pulling off Endless Nightmares? So,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think a lot of our conversation points in Soul Blight needs to happen is what battle line enable us to do what tactics.
And what subfaction you run with.
Right.
Those are the two main pieces. The rest of it more or less writes itself.
Yeah. But no, Legion of Blood, amazing heroic actions, battle traits just do magic better or fight better. So good list. I like to see Legion of Blood. Neffy's my girl, and I hope you get many 5-up auto kills. All right. Let's get that next list.
Looking like we're someone in the chat is asking for flesh eater quartz, and well, I guess we're going to appease them.
All right. So Feck came out, and I was like, eh. So Dillon, what does this do?
Oh, it's not the scariest that you're ever going to see, but what this will do is score super well. So we got Hollow Morn. That means the horrors and the flayers are going to be +1 to damage on the charge. That means those horrors, even if they're only 3 dudes, are going to be dumping 15 or 16 attacks at damage 3, sometimes damage 4. They're deceptively killy. We've got the most undercosted unit in the entire book with the Archregent, who has Hoarfrost and is going to just be sitting there making this army hard as hell to kill. You got a Marrowscrow Herald, who just will never die, depending on what he's standing next to. You got the Courtier, the Infernal Courtier with Cruel Taskmaster for better recycle. Judge Gourmain here just to give excellent buffs as long as you can roll that 3 up. I'm going to skip Manfred for a second. We've got some good battle line. Just for what they do, they're already going to punish you. The crit flares are great little harassment pieces. Occasionally can pop off. They open up a good battle tactic. All good things there. The Manfred ROR, I'm not the biggest fan of it in Feck. I don't think they particularly need it. But it offers a very, very hard question for people who are not used to death acting like Sylvaneth.
Yeah.
Manfred is the most disruptive piece in the army, or in this list especially. He's countercharging you when you redeploy. His bats are giving free battle tactics. The Graveguard are going to teleport to 6 inches away and auto-charge you with extra attacks.
Yep.
The combo he's looking for here is he's going to teleport Manfred up and drop a purple sun on whatever it is that he feels like dealing with. And the rest of the army is now going to come up and hit you really hard. And he's got Cadaverous Barricade in here to make you burn a Unbind every single turn. It's a solid build. Manny's not the best here, but he's still going to do great work just because this is a great little group of units and abilities.
No, I wonder how many Manfred regiments of renown we're gonna see.
A lot if people read that freaking regiment.
Right? So crazy.
Night Hunt and OBR especially love it.
It's really funny. I don't think you'll be able to pull it off many games, but Manfred with Gostagor can give those Graveguard an additional attack to get them to 4 attacks a model.
No, they don't have Legion of Night.
Oh, they don't have Legion of Night?
Oh, yeah. They don't have the sub-faction.
Gotcha.
Yes, attack the Legion Knight summonables. So it works in Legion Knight, but only in Legion Knight.
Okay. Yep. So he can't get the extra attack on him with that. Damn. That would have been saucy.
I mean, they get 1 for free just by teleporting, so it's not like they're missing out on anything.
And that teleport, like you said, is an auto charge. Graveguard can't roll less than a 6 on their charge, and they teleport 6 inches away. So, yeah,
just need to make sure you don't give the other guy a free redeploy because I believe that's part of movement phase.
All right. So fun list. Like to see it. Let's get the next list up.
Like Richard Healy bringing some more Legion of Blood. So we got, once again, vampires get +1 to cast if they are outside melee and +1 to attacks if they're inside melee from Legion of Blood. Empire of Corpses is, I believe, bring back 3 summonable units before the end of the game. We've got Neferata, staple in Legion of Blood, Waste Away, standard pick on her. Vlad, command trait for doomed minions. So choose a battle line and you're -1. You hit them on 2s with everything except for your own mount, strangely. Artifacts of power, close mist and shadow, so ethereal, Soul Pike. So the same 2 stars we see in every Legion of Blood list, basically. What else we have after that? We've got Kato as a chair, easy chair. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Easy chair.
Going with easy chair. All right. He cannot have any sub-faction, so he does not benefit from the Legion of Blood special rules. However, he gets his own rule for +1 to cast or some other stuff like
all of his damage becomes mortal wounds.
That's another one, or fast movement. He's got a lot of interesting rules. They're all good. He just chooses which one he wants every turn. Vile Transference to keep him topped off on health. He has the hunger, so he can do that if he's in melee with those mortal wounds as well. Vampire Lord with Merciless Blizzard. Artifact of Power, Amulet of Screams. So we're going to see a command entourage later here. I honestly don't remember what Amulet of Screams does.
I'll go dig it up while you talk about the rest.
Sounds good. I always just see Cloak of Mist and Shadows, and that's the end of the artifact section.
Right.
We've got a unit of Dire Wolves, a unit of Death Rattle Skeletons, Death Rattle Skeletons, Death Rattle Skeletons, Death Rattle Skeletons. So that is 4 units of 10 Death Rattle and a unit of 10 Dire Wolves. A unit of 5 Blood Knights and a Warlord Battalion. So lots and lots of drops. For the most part, the core concept is very similar to Vince's list, just couple small changes like taking Kato and more min-sized units of skeletons to make that MSU feed into the Empire of Corpses grand strat a little easier. I think there's really not much else to add beyond it's the same tricks that we saw in the other Legion of Blood list that we've already talked about. Base concept's the same. Any luck digging up Amulet of Screams?
Yeah, it's anti-magic tech. Roll a dice each time an enemy unit within 18 cast a spell that is not unbound. On a 3-up, they take D3. So minor amount of chip damage on some wizards.
Okay, yeah. And given that the same Vampire Lord has Merciless Blizzard, goal is probably to get this guy fairly close.
Yep.
He doesn't have anything amazing to throw that +1 attack on. So to me, he just feels like he's a Merciless Blizzard ticking time bomb.
Yep.
Makes sense
All
to
right.
me. All right, on to Peyton's OBR list.
Yes, Peyton's list.
All right, Dillon, I believe this is your territory.
Yep. So Peyton is playing my list because he asked for it. So what we've got is, I think the stream is slow. It's not scrolling down.
Chair Grot. Let me a second. Gotta go find the intern.
It's moved. Joe's leaving.
There
anyway.
we go. All right, so we've got Mortis Praetorians. This is the one that is the most fun to play. It's a counter charge, exactly the same as Legion of Night. When an enemy charges or finishes a charge within 12 of something OBR, they get to charge. Once per turn, no command point, no roll-in, no nothing. We got the big boys, Catacross and Arkan. They are just the best possible synergies you can get in this book. They're doing is enough work to justify that enormous price tag at 880 for the two of them. The Ossifector here has a +1 to wound bubble. He points at the Morghast and makes them work by being better rend or ignoring damage. He's got Blizzard if you ever just run up on him. The Cavalos is your general. He's got a bubble of 12 inches of -3 to charge. It's really good, turns out. And he's got an artifact to make himself a little tankier, always bonus to wards. You got a Riders unit that is really the star of the show. You've got some Mortec here to stand in the way and hopefully keep your Overshadow alive in the end of the game. And you've got 4 Archai who are going to be doing an unholy amount of damage to whatever they make it into contact with. You can never use a command point within 3 of them. You're going to be taking rend between 2 and 5, damage 3 on a bucket of dice. Like they are just going to hit you really hard is the main idea of this. There's the 400 and whatever points of Archai, and then the other 1500 points of the list is to support them and run interference.
I've lost this list.
Yep. So have I. So have I.
It's
I
a real
lost to
fun
this
one to
list.
pilot. It's not very fun to play against.
I lost to this when it was Stalkers and a Mortis Guard, and now it's Archai. So fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
Good.
It's got a lot of tricks. It's deceptively deep. It's got a very simple idea of what it wants to do, but some things just can't deal with the bulldozer.
Yeah, no, it's if you can't get a hold of those, you're gonna have a hard time. All right. Chair Grot. Someone touched the computer.
Oh god.
Okay, so Let's see. Hopefully there's no audio issues. I know she just plugged her headset in. Okay,
All
another
right.
another OBR list.
Right. So we've got a copy paste from some of the last Teams Worlds events that have been going on. Again, Mortis Praetorians, Spellcasting Savant. This one's a lot more aggro and in your face. There's no Catacross. It's only Arkan and his buddies. The command trait on the Ossifector is helpful here. I'm not the biggest fan of it if you have an Arkan, but it means that the first lore spell that the Ossifector casts per turn is going to be autocast, or it cannot be unbound. Now, that's something to keep an eye on. Some people think that that means that they can cast anything with him, and he's going to get it. It's only the first one from the lore, which means that he's going to be casting Protection of Nagash for free.
Yeah.
It's going to be slightly helping the Ossifector stay alive. It's okay. The thing here is that we've got double 4 brick of Morghast, so I really hope that you liked the last list. This one just does that, but hits a whole lot harder at the price of basically all of its control and durability.
Yeah. I I played against basically this list at LVO, I believe. And 2 Morghast reached over and killed 3 Varangard.
Mhm.
And that was unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this specific archetype. It either wins or loses really hard and very early usually, but
Yeah.
if it gets into you, it's going to do the damage.
Yeah. All right. But
Makes sense.
I hate to go through these so quickly, but these lists are boiled down to its bare components, so there's not much to talk about.
We've also seen a couple very similar lists back to back, so that's part of why we're going through them very quickly. Hey,
Yeah,
look,
something
it's
new.
me.
Yeah, that's Matt Robish. Matt, tell us about your list.
Sure. So I'm playing a Soul Blight. I'm bringing my Castellai army. So I get buffs whenever a unit kills a thing. If it has 1 or 2 wounds, it gets a run speed bonus for the rest of the game. If it is, or +2 to move, whatever. If it is a 3 wound or higher non-hero, non-monster unit, it gets +1 to its attack characteristic. Does not apply to mounts. If it is a monster or hero, then it gets +1 to its damage characteristic. Also doesn't apply to mounts. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to how that works with the rest of the army in a moment when we get to the unit. Grand strategy is Lesser Domination. I have 4 grave sites on the battlefield. I use them for very little in this list other than my grand strat. I just need to control more of them at the end of the game, and I get to set them up in the most favorable position I can to do that. Leaders are Prince Vordry. Whenever a unit would gain a rule from Castle for the Castellai passive, once per turn, I can choose another unit that's wholly within 24 inches of him to also gain that buff. Only the vampires get the buffs. He can only give them to vampires. Nothing's changed there. But it means the first time I kill a unit with 3 or more wounds, 2 units in my army are now getting +1 attack for the rest of the game. Next up is a Vangorian Lord. She's my general. Her command trait is Undead Blade Lord, which means that once per turn, when a unit would gain a rule from the Castellai bonus traits, she also gets to copy that rule as well, which means the first time I kill something, actually 3 units get +1 attack for the rest of the game. Interestingly, because she is not mounted, she gets +1 to attack and damage on all of her profiles instead of just the rider. There is no rider, it's just her. Her spell is Spirit Gale, which is to say Mystic Shield most of the time. And every once in a while, I'll see something at 1 hit point and go, why not? She's there to cast Mystic Shield. I've got a Vampire Lord on foot who casts Hoarfrost. I've got some Dire Wolves. I've got 10 Blood Knights. I've got 10 more Blood Knights and a unit of Fell Bats. I've got a Battle Regiment that fits everything except for Vordry. So we're looking at 2 drops. Army is fairly straightforward in being a lot of 3-up armor saves. I already had 20 Blood Knights, and I've been playing it since the previous Soulblight book. So I was very disappointed when they went up to 230, but accepted that at least they're 2-inch reach and 2 Ren base now. And then they dropped back to 210 like a week and a half ago, and I said, okay. So we've got the rend, and now we're back to the same cost almost. Perfect. Love it.
Nope.
List is fairly straightforward. I want to brawl, and it's pretty decent at it. And my late game gets progressively better if I get the targets I want. The challenge is always getting the ball rolling on those Castelli buffs. Once it gets started, this list becomes very scary. Up until then, I have to figure out a way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no. You played this list recently on stream, and like you said, it's kind of like a snowball. Once those buffs start happening, you're good. The big thing is you can just never lose a hero against this list, or points and damage calculations and expectations just become unmanageable.
Yes.
But I like the list. It's fun to play. It's fun to look at. It's everything people don't hate about Soulblight. So good stuff. Let's get that next list.
All right. Looks like we've got Kit Reich bringing out another beautifully painted army. We've got his Legion of Blood Soulblight Gravelords. Once again, that's +1 to cast if they're out of combat, +1 to attacks for the heroes if they're in combat. Only applies to vampires, only applies to heroes. Triumph is bloodthirsty with a 10-point bid. And we're looking at Neferata, Waste Away. Same thing we've seen in the other Legion of Blood lifts. A Vampire Lord on foot with Hoarfrost. A Necromancer with Fading Vigor. Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. Command traits Tailored Downfall. I believe that is similar to Doomed Minions, but for a monster.
I think Tailored Downfall is the strike last on heroes.
Yeah, okay, heroes, not monster. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cloak of Mist and Shadows, Flaming Weapon. I actually really like Flaming Weapon on the Zombie Dragon, by the way. It means that if it successfully cast, all of his profiles are just damage 3. You don't even have to look at it unless you've got something where you really need the rend. Then fine, you go to a damage 4 lance.
Yeah.
Beyond that, into Battle Line, we've got Black Knights. They do charge impact hits, 10 Direwolves, 20 Deadwalker Zombies, Corpse Cart, and 20 Graveguard. I like this list. I think that the other two Legion of Blood lists, I always feel like when you just have the Zombie Dragon and Neferata, you have the 2 stars of the show, and everything else is focused on pinning you down. You bring 20 Graveguard, and now you've got the 2 stars of the show, but don't forget the Graveguard, because if they ever make the charge they want, they just annihilate something.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Very similar to the list I'm looking to play as well. I think 20 Graveguard in the army is a fantastic choice.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
The downside is that the screens here are a little bit light, which is strange for Soulblight. Only 5 Blackguard, 10 Direwolves, and 20 Deadwalker Zombies. You can lose all that in one turn. I guess there's a Corpse Cart too, but still.
Corpse Cart's there to give them another +1 to cast.
True.
Yeah.
And realistically, that's just a support piece, so that's further and back with the heroes as well.
Nope.
Yeah,
I like it. Kit,
it's good. It's the only
Kit-
one that we can probably just slap a golden ticket on right now.
right? I mean, Kit's played this list now for what feels like 2 years, so he's good with it. All right, we got Kel left the ghost at home, and now he's bringing.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
This isn't Nighthawk.
Nope.
He is abandoned the ghosty boys. So we've got Hollowmorn again. That means that all of those crypt horrors you see down there are going to be, and the Morbeg Knights are going to be doing just an unholy amount of damage if you ever let them charge.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Savant on the Archregent. Again, you never leave home without an Archregent. Usually you want 2 of them if you can fit them. He's got bonus to cast on him. He's got the good spell in the lore with Deranged Transformation for bonus move, bonus to wound. Blizzard, because why wouldn't you? You got your second Archregent for redundancy, and because that regen is just fantastic. Marrow Scroll Herald, who's a priest, so you can get someone in this army to get them up a 5-up ward. Super, super good on an army that's already very recursion heavy.
Mm-hmm.
The Gore Warden is just fantastic when you've got a brick of 6 knights that are going to deep strike and move d6 inches after deep striking where you can't redeploy off of. Give him with that blizzard little threat piece. You've now got a blizzard threat following you up if you were on the bottom of the turn. You've got a very fast little wizard hero who can just get anywhere he needs to. My favorite little play with this is if I'm into a very hammer-centric army, I'll move that Gore Warden up with that free move, get him into a charge, and let something important kill him, so that our next little friend, Justice Gourmain, can point at it and make those horrors an extra damage on a 3-up from anywhere on the table. It's enormous amounts of damage that this list can pump out. If those horrors ever get a successful Hoarfrost, you just may as well say goodbye to whatever touches them. The Bat Knights are a really, really good threat piece that people just haven't quite figured out how to deal with. A lot of people, at least, haven't quite figured out how to deal with that deep strike into a movement threat and then resummon, refill, and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
They do a spiky amount of mortal wounds on the charge. They hit fairly hard, especially in Hollowmorn, especially if that judge buff is up. And then, to top all of this, we have 20 dudes of Beast Flayer who are the most wounds-efficient unit in the lineup. You've got multiple wounds in there who are multiple dudes in there who are multi-wound and coming back for a third of the cost that you would be getting it normally. They hit really hard. They're great anti-monster tech. They're very durable. All very, very good things. And can't tell who's in the Wizard Finders. Is it just the horrors, looks like? Yeah, it's just everything in this is going to hit unbelievably hard if it gets anywhere near you.
The horrors and the herald, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very, very solid list. And Kel's a pretty good player.
Yeah. No, this was that book dropped, and this was like the shit people were talking about. Like, can you believe how much damage they could do? And here's the list to do it.
Yeah, I watched 6 of these horrors lift that bell list, the Skaven bell list that everyone's afraid of. Like, it'll slap.
Because on 6s, it's mortals, right?
6s is a better damage attack. So they're base 2s. That means that on the charge, they're going to be base 3s. If they have the Justice up, they're going to be base 4s. Every 6 to hit is a +1 to that.
Okay.
Excuse me, 6 to wound. 6 to wound, yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yep.
We'll see how well it does. So good list, Kel, as always.
Defenders of the Realm Delusion, so the whole thing is +1 to save while it's on an objective or contesting objectives it controls.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So disgusting. You love it. All right, let's get that next list. All right. There's a local Austin player. He's been playing OBR for a while now, so what's he bringing?
We got Mortis Praetorians again. Countercharge is fantastic. Best thing ever. We've got Savant on the Ossifector. There's no Immortus, so it's again a little bit risky. That Ossifector is going to be having to stay back a bit. He's got Aura of Sterility because no one likes shooting. -1 to hit and wound for all shooting within that targets anything wholly within 12 of him. Great way to neuter, KO threats and just not lose on the first turn. The Bone Shaper's got double tap heal. He's got Hoarfrost. Just all great things to have again. A 20 Mortec brick is just silly amounts of damage if they actually get all of their buffs going. It's a question if they can get there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are spells. We got a unit of Harbingers, so does everyone love Morghast? Well, I hope you like them when they can deep strike. It's not the best tool in the world, but pray that they just don't make that 9-inch charge. We have the main effort hammer here is going to be the 6 Stalkers. Everyone seems to have forgot that Stalkers absolutely slap when they get going.
Yep.
They're just as big a threat as, if not more, than a Morghast brick. They just don't turn off command points. So they're a little less efficient, but they're still a solid hammer that can double duty as an impromptu anvil.
Mm-hmm. No, I've played him. I've I've played Josh with this list for months now. He likes it. He pilots it well. He does well with it, and one of the few people I would say that was doing it before it was cool. So good on him. All right, let's get that. Let's get the next list going.
Looking like we got some more OCRs.
Oh, even more. Okay.
All right.
All right. We got the one Null Myriad here who just doesn't like it when magic happens to him. So 4 up, anywhere on the board, ignore it. Whatever happens. Fairly good into a Blizzard meta. He is elected to not take a Liege, which is certainly a choice with Morghast. He's at Savant with Immortus, so a little more reliable on that Ossifactor to keep him alive. Against Sterility, because he doesn't like being shot. 8 Morghast to punch you as hard as they possibly can, and he's got a Gravetide for anti-hordes. It's a take on it. I'm not the biggest fan of losing +1 attacks on, base 3 attack models that need that damage to be going through, but it'll still do its job.
Yeah. All right. So, no, we've kind of already talked about this. 4 Archive, 2 more Guard, 4 more Archive, plus Arcan. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get this next list. What if Arcan didn't make them battle line?
Oh.
Imagine the world we'd live in.
A sad one.
He'd still be in every list. Wouldn't change that.
Yep.
All right, here we go. More Feck.
All right. We got Morgaunt, so the heroes all get their extra little deed points if they are standing on an objective. Defend the throne again, just keep that throne from being touched. We've got Big Pappy Yushoran finally, who just is a great support piece for the army. He hits like a truck. It's just that he's not got the best attack profile with that. Again, the Archregents, you're going to see them everywhere. Again, the Marrow Scroll Herald, you're going to see him everywhere. We've got the Crypt Guard to make Yushoran and all the little heroes by proxy a lot more durable. And we've got 1 gajillion Crypt Ghouls to just be everywhere, be constantly refilling from that chalice. We got a couple Knights and more big Crypt Flayers to run around in the backfield and harass little targets. This is going to stand on objectives. It's going to give Hoarfrost to Ghouls, who are going to be auto-wounding on 5s, and it's going to dump 120 attacks into you. Turns out pretty good.
Fun.
Makes sense.
What do you think of Ushran, Dillon?
I think he's a little overpriced. I tend to like the just 6 hero lists better. It's not like he's not going to do work, and his spell is just the funniest thing in the world if you draw giants. But it just takes a little more work to make him work well.
Yeah. Do you feel like GW's been playing it really safe with these big models recently?
Extremely. They really don't like giving out the crazy cool stuff anymore. And you can just look at Nagash as an example of what happened when they did give it every possible tool, and he's still suffering for that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, by the time 4th edition rolls around, they'll see that and drop Ushran down another, 20 or 30 points, maybe even 40, and then you can get real fun with him.
I think he looks a lot more appealing once the Archregents are appropriately priced.
Yeah.
I feel like Belthanos and Ionis are the 2 examples to that. We can't let this big thing be too cool.
Mm-hmm.
And those were both armies that were kind of struggling not too long ago, so I kind of understand why they did that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll get lucky and they'll just knock Ushran down to 400 so we can just ally him in everywhere.
I mean, you can. There's a cool
He's
ROR
a support
for that.
piece, though. His support rules don't work on things that are outside of his faction. Though Dillon's right. If you want to do that, you get the ROR, and then you have things that do benefit from his support effect.
Hey, D3 plus 3 is not a support piece. It's there to slap. All right, let's get the next list going.
All right, we're getting back to Soulblight. Ooh, Avangori. We haven't seen one of those yet.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh
And
my
my
god,
favorite list.
Okay.
so fucking weird.
This list
Alright.
is a trip already, and I'm already just at the first selection.
Y'all
Okay,
talk about it. I don't want
Avangori.
nothing to do with it.
All right, Avangori has some special monster rampages that it gets to do. They get to eat things. The other one is a Rube Goldberg machine of maybe I'll get an extra activation, but probably not.
Mm-hmm.
What was the passive? You get to choose a monster and they strike at top profile even if they're injured, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Lust for Domination, control your grave sites. Triumph is inspired with a 10-point bid for +1 to wound. Nagash. Nagash does a lot of stuff. His War Scroll is entirely too long. This is Nagash without a spell portal. What's going on here?
Right.
So Nagash's big trademark spell is Hand of Dust. Choose a unit within 3 inches, just 3 inches, and there's a 50% chance you kill them. You play a shell game basically with a dice in one of your hands. If your opponent guesses the hand with the dice, they're fine. If the hand is empty, they are dead. You just straight kill a monster. No, your opponent. You kill your opponent. You choose a unit. That unit model dies.
Right.
Other than that, he has a 5-up ward bubble. He has the ability to bring models back that have died earlier in the game, which Soulblight already has. It only applies to summonable units, so it'd just be the Death Rattle skeletons in this list, and they can only be brought back once, so he's probably just going to use Soulblight Gravelords to do that. He's okay-ish in combat, not 860 points of combat, but he's not bad. Other than that, you've got a Vangorian Lord. Oh, and Nagash never benefits from your army passive rules. He's got his own rules instead. Let's see, your Vangorian Lord, General, Monstrous Might, Vial of Manticore Venom for +1 to wound on the Nightmare Saber, and spells Flaming Weapon to probably give +1 damage to that Nightmare Saber. Honestly, I forget exactly what Monstrous Might does.
-1 to wound Avangori monsters wholly within 12.
That's right. It used to only apply to non-monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's good. 2 Terrorgeists. Okay, they're Terrorgeists. They don't have the tricks that old Feck had with them, where the bite was able to roll twice to look for the fishing for 6s, but they can still hot dice some 6 mortal wounds off the bite, and their battle line and their monsters.
Mm-hmm.
20 Death Rattle skeletons. They'll come back. They're basically the cheap chaff on objectives. A Emerald Life Swarm because this army is sorely lacking models and needs to not lose anything. Probably for Nagash himself because he doesn't have nearly as much recursion as he does outside of OBR. He lost the OBR keyword. He doesn't have recursion there either, does he?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Petrogash used to be a thing, hasn't been a thing for a while. And then 3 Fellbats, which are probably one of the only things you could fit in that last 100 points. Honestly, it's a monster mash. It looks like it wants to run forward and hit you with the Terrorgeist and see how that goes. It doesn't have enough screening potential to do much counter punching, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Nagash might randomly Hand of Dust something and win the game. Without Spell Portal, it is melee only. It feels like this is. It feels like James came here to have a fun game, and if he just cleaves somebody apart with a large spike of damage and Nagash's endless supply of spells, awesome. The list is going to be deceptively durable because of Nagash slinging debuffs. That's the one big trick that I can see here.
And the 5-up ward.
That's only for summonables, though, right? No, it's all death models. It does
Yeah.
apply to the Terrorgeists.
5-up ward on them with a -1 to be wounded. It's deceptively durable, but it's not going to be. It's not going to have any staying power, especially if Nagash gets picked.
Yes, if you kill Nagash, the game's over. And the Terrorgeists are still a 4-up save with 14 wounds.
Yeah, 14.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame to not see Lauka Vi in the list, but I understand why the points just aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you pick the Vangorian for the command trait over Lukavi.
100%. You don't have a choice. You need that command trait.
Yeah. Oh well. All right. Let's get on to that next list. Oh, it's Ben Richardson. I wonder how many more guests he's gonna have.
Actually, 0. His is the weirdest OBR of the night.
Double stalkers. All right.
Yeah, so we've got Petrifex. This only kind of makes sense as a sub-faction choice into a very, very melee-heavy meta. I am not the biggest fan of it. I think it's a trash sub-faction that really just doesn't give you anything you didn't already have if you were building a list to just be durable to begin with. He's got Savant on a Bone Shaper, who is a 5-up ward because of his low to saturation. He can be a 4-up. It's still 5 wounds and no Immortus to protect him, so it's banking a little bit on that. He's just trying to keep him protected. The Soul Mason's a lore master, so having Hoarfrost plus the entire OBR lore is pretty good. 12 Stalkers is a whole lot of punch. They can act as your meat shield if they absolutely have to, with their +1 to save for free. They're fairly quick. They're going to be into you and dealing damage to you pretty quick. I'm not the biggest fan of them as your main effort, especially after the recursion nerfs, and especially because you don't have the double Mortarch engine to really keep them plussed up from far away.
Mm-hmm.
Your Bone Shaper has to be there to be helping them at all. You got a 30 brick of Mortec, though, which is just a lot to chew through for a lot of armies. They're not going to die in one swing to very much. You got 2 units of horses to run around acting as control pieces, little hero snipers. It's a threat overload style of build. It's going to ask a lot of questions of your opponent and whether they know how to prioritize targets. There's a lot that can deal with this, but it can also snowball really quickly.
Okay.
Dropping both Archon and Catacross, that's a tough call to make, but look at, as you said, a threat overload. This is a lot of points of actually just boots on the ground instead of support for those boots. I think it's an atypical take for Bone Reapers, but I almost feel like committing to it full on like this is the way to do it. If you're going to drop one of them, drop them both and just go super heavy on front line. I actually think that makes some sense. It's interesting.
It's a style. I'm of the opinion that basically everything in the OBR book was pointed with the idea that it was always getting free all-out attack and defense. There's not a whole lot of efficiency in Mortec when they aren't getting those bonuses, especially if that low to saturation's not all the way. Excuse me, the cartouche giving them a +1 to wound isn't in the list or all the way up there with them. Hoarfrost, you're banking a whole lot on that spell happening and being the right roll. I'm not a fan of Mortec. They can do work. They're just not as reliable as some of the other tools you have in the army.
Yeah, I think you might have a point. And mentally, I always look at all these units as though they are +1 to hit and +1 to save. And seeing Necropolis Stalkers and being like, actually, no, they don't have those buffs. Mortec Guard, no, they're just a 4-up.
Right.
They can ignore Rend if needed, but again, they're very, very susceptible to Roar. There's not really good recursion for them in this list.
Yeah, I just assumed that if you don't kill a unit, it's full health. That's not here.
Yeah, this is as squishy and as punchy as you're going to find OBR that isn't just spamming more guests.
No, interesting list, but let's see what we got next.
We got Caleb Rebstock with some more OBR.
This is possibly the bravest list going to this entire event. So again, we got Petrifex. So the Morghast are going to be -1 to be wounded in melee. They are Harbingers, so they're not getting the good ward. You're only getting 4 OBR units in the army, so you're only getting 1 bonus command point at most. What you trade for that is a 33-inch Hand of Dust. So I really hope that you unbind one of those 2 spells, or your favorite model has a 50-50 chance of just dying from almost anywhere on the board.
Yeah. But no, this is a silly list. I like it.
Yeah, I played this exact same thing into Eli for a few practice games. It's very fun. It's terrible at scoring points, but it's, turning Croak into a pile of dust is just the best highlight of the day.
Right.
Yeah, this knows how to commit a murder. The question is, can it hold the table?
Well, it can't, but it will have great fun doing it.
We're playing with audio. Give us a second.
Did the Chairgrot just tell us he needs to eat some cables?
Yeet, I believe.
Yeet, okay.
I don't feed the Chairgrot. He lives off of what he can find in the room.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Can you hear
All
us?
right. We are doing a sound check. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Okay.
All
So-
right. I think we're good.
So down to Colton.
All right. More Soulblight and more Legion of Blood. Lust for Domination, so control the grave sites. Legion of Blood is focus on vampire heroes, +1 to attacks when in melee, +1 to cast when out of melee. Indomitable as a triumph, it doesn't matter. He has a 0-point bid for it. Vlazd with Close Mist and Shadow and Doom minions. Seen this trick before. Flaming Weapon, excellent choice on that one. So we've got an Ethereal Zombie Dragon with a 3-up save. We've got Prince Vordry showing up in Legion of Blood. Okay, he's keyword locked to Castalize, so he does not have the Legion of Blood bonuses, but he's still a big stompy zombie dragon. One of his big abilities that I mentioned in my list is transferring the Castalize subfaction to other units, but that requires that a unit gain the buff in the first place. You can't do that outside of Castalize, so that won't be a effective rule. Vordry did, however, just come down in points, and there's 0 points to spare, so this may be a enjoy the cheap unit while it's there. And of course, Neferata is the other all-star for the list. Battle line, we've got a reinforced unit of Deathwalker skeletons, a reinforced unit of Deadwalker zombies, and 10 dire wolves. Clocking this list as probably the most summonable units we've seen all tournament. We've got a battle regiment, which we've got 3 big monsters, so we're looking at 3 drops, and everything else fits into that. So this is very much, we have 3 Death Stars in the Vlazd with Ethereal Cloak, Vordry, and Neferata. It looks like Vordry is just here to be a giant sledgehammer. He'll do that pretty good. And then the summonable units are the chaff to get in your way. They'll do that pretty good. It's a decent amount of wounds in the front and a decent amount of very mobile focused fire hits from the back line, basically charging over and doing work. Makes sense to me. It's a little bit different take on Legion of Blood, closer to what we saw from Kit with his unit of what's it called, Graveguard, where you have that third threat. It's just Vordry being mobile instead.
I don't like it. Like, turn a unit of zombies into skeletons. Take a second Vlazd. There you go.
I could see it. I do think that I also would prefer the second Vlazd. I don't think you get enough out of Vordry's Quick Blood. Hang on a sec. It's his spell that lets him get strike first. So you can actually charge with Vordry and the Vlazd and go deep, and you'll fight with both of them one after the other. I think that might be the justification here, is actually his spell. Though without +1 to cast, you may or may not get it.
I feel like you could get the same effect with fight second with the ethereal one and fight first with the not ethereal one and just do more damage.
Fair. Also, Vordry doesn't get to use Nefrata's pregame redeploy, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Yep.
You actually tell your opponent where one of your models is instead of being like, I don't know, I just put 4 things on the board and I'm just going to redeploy them all anyway. You go ahead and set up. I'll
Yep.
tell you what's underground. You have no further information. I'll let you know before the first turn.
Right.
Anyway, generally same concept as Legion of Blood. Just we have 3 Death Stars instead of 2.
Yep.
I've seen what's her name, Laukavai used as that 3rd Death Star instead of Vordry before. A little bit cheaper, a little bit less hitty. So this is tried and true territory that's worked before. I do like actually having a few more summonable units on the board without it being a 200, 300 zombie sludge fest that's just going to clog up the board and see what happens. This is, I've got screens, I've got hammers, I want to pin you down with my sacrificial units and then hit what I really want to hit with my heroes.
No, it's definitely an interesting take on Legion of Blood list. So, but yeah, let's get to the next list.
All right, we've got Charles Belt with some more OBR. So we're back to you, Dillon.
Oh, by the way, not a single Legion of Night list at this event.
Yeah,
I
that's
noticed
a
we
weird
hadn't seen one yet. Yeah.
But okay,
All
Dylan, take it
right.
away.
So we've got Petrifex again. It is actually helping the majority of the list this time, rather than just a couple units here or there. We've got the Soul Mason with Dark Acolyte, so the first lore spell that he casts is going to be an auto. No auto blizzards, makes 4 sad skeletons. The Immortus Brick is here just to be ablative wounds for the Soul Mason and to keep that the Grand Strat alive. You've got 2 minimum-sized units of Stalkers. I'm a really, really big fan of them if you're going to take them as MSUs, as like secondary hammers and harassing units. 3 of them does a just frankly silly amount of damage if you just ignore them, and a lot of people tend to ignore them because there's usually other threats. This list doesn't exactly have them, unless you're using the Immortus for that. That's a little bold, and they're kind of slow in comparison. The Harbingers are here because of points. There's no real good other reason to ever take Harbingers, because they are just a straight downgrade in every possible way from Archai. And you've got a Suffocating Gravetide. I don't hate it for dealing with hordes. This list already kind of deals with them well, but it's not really what you want your Stalkers and other valuable units punching.
Yeah.
It's a solid list. It's a little bit light on the bodies, but the Petrifex helps with that.
Okay.
It reminds me of what we saw when the OBR tome first dropped.
Mhm.
This looks like pre-nerf Petrifex. Maybe you'd see Arcan in here instead, but it looks very similar to original Battle Tome drop list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those Immortus are not dying to any regular melee threats. It would have to be a truly good melee hammer to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. No, good stuff. OBR list. It's a theme. All right, let's get that next list.
All right, we've got another Petrifex Elite list from Derek Hildebrand.
All right. Looks really similar. There's really only one major change, and it is the absolute pick of the Soul Reaper, who most OBR players would have forgotten exists by now. So he's a weird little melee hero. His only real role in the army, not the specific list, but the book itself, is being the cheapest wizard that you can stick Blizzard on. And he's perfectly fine at doing that exact job. He wants to be up front. He's got the Helm of Tyranny, so he's making your Battle Shock tests a lot worse. He's making your Inspiring not happen. It's a pretty decent little piece for that. We've got, again, the 2 Stalkers, the 1 unit of Immortus. This is going to do exactly the same as the last list, but it's got a very, very, very aggressive Blizzard threat to go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once again, the 6 Immortus, double 3 Stalkers. Again, reminds me of early book kind of strategies and list builds.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
both this and the last one I would like a lot better if Petrifex was the old minus to damage. But it still does its job.
Interesting point thing. not really like on the topic of lists, but this list, it pointed out the stalkers don't have the
Mhm.
two-handed weapon selected.
Mhm.
All right. But he probably intends to play with those. Like,
Probably there's some edge cases for not taking them. I'm not the one who agrees with those edge cases, but yeah, maybe he just didn't like the look of them. A lot of
as
people
a
built them the old way without them.
as opponents, if the guy was like, they got the falchions, would you let him have the falchions if they're not on the list?
As long as he's got big swords on a model, I'm not going to care enough.
Yeah.
Alternatively, we can sort this out, and I'll just include this in my list of things to poke Matt Taylor about.
Fair enough. Brian with the ain't on the list, ain't in the game. Man had a GT sold from him, and he's like, never again.
Fair.
All right. Let's get to that
I
next list.
believe the next list, we're just finished Derek, right? So this Dillon's list is actually the last list we have for the show.
Oh, this looks a
So
little
Dillon,
familiar.
go ahead and talk us through what you're doing here, and I think we've said Joe's got a one more sheet of stats. We're about at the end.
All right. So this is exactly the same thing as what I said for Peyton, because he pressed Control C and Control V. The only difference is I have the Nightmare Predator. It's a nice little AOE mortal wound spell. It's basically the Corn Wrath Axe. It's going to hit everything that it touched for D3, and then point at one more thing and do D6 to it. It's here because Steam Tanks bad touched me last weekend, and I didn't like how few mortal wounds I had.
At least you admit it.
Steam Tank's a little silly.
Right. Was that pre or post battle scroll?
Oh, post. They are still silly.
Oh yeah, they still got you. Oh.
Yes.
No, I mean, same thing we said with Peyton. It's a good list. Like it
Yep.
has all the fun stuff.
Yep.
So-
Morghast are going to point at something and they're going to kill it. There is very few things that are going to survive through that punch.
How's your curse of years been like lately? Have you been getting good curse of years?
Anywhere between 1 and, what was it, 23 mortals?
Jesus.
That was, obviously to a 5-wound hero who had no ward. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. I had curse of years blow Karazai off the board. I fucked up and got him outside of Praetor range, and the guy
Ooh.
was like, "Wait a minute," and then just boom, blew Karazai off the board. And I was like, "This game's dumb."
Living the dream.
Right. All right, but no, that's all of our. Okay, actually, that is almost exactly half the lists for Lone Star. Tomorrow will be Chaos and Destruction. If we go down another slide, we have a few interesting stats. So it kind of cut us off here. Chair Grut needs to rearrange my orientation on that, but you can see there is a very very close split between all of the armies that are represented. Death is a little underrepresented with 0 Nighthawk coming to the event, which doesn't surprise me, but is still it sucks
surprises me. Kel signed up.
Right?
Surprises me. Nighthawk got twice as good overnight.
They actually were like everything that sucked about that army now got better.
Yeah.
So we can see ton of 1-drops, ton of 2-drops. Earlier in 3rd edition, I feel like you could have just added the 2-drops to the 1-drop because it was battle reg or bust. Now a lot of lists are kind of finding themselves with two heroes like over 10 wounds, so they're kind of being forced into the 2-drop or the double
Also,
battle.
Antorian Locust Battalion is good.
True, but Antorian Locust will force you into the 3-drop.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I'm seeing. But my point is, I suppose I'm making a point after your point of it doesn't feel like it's just giant line of 1s, moderately sized line of 2s, occasionally some 4s and 5s, and then like one of something real low.
Yeah. No,
This feels like the whole line, the whole list, the whole distribution is moved further down.
I definitely feel like there's a lot of people that are like, I wish I could be in a 1-drop. 2's fine. A lot of people that are like, I have my 1-drop and my warlord, and then people that are like, fuck it. I like to be able to counter deploy as best as I can and have access to turn 1 tactics. But you see, alliances are pretty evenly split. Order is bloated, but that just has more armies than everything else. And then if we drop down one more slide, we can see our sub-faction splits in the orders in there. So cities kind of all over the place. Fire Slayers, really the only 2 that we ever see. Deepkin, I'm surprised there's less shark lists than eel lists.
Mm-hmm.
KO, you're only ever going to see 1 sub-faction for KO. Lumineth, actually the two you expect to see for Lumineth, if Lumineth's going to show up.
We did have a 3rd Starborn list. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But just as much coalesced as Starborn, which is great to see.
Yeah, no. Really good split on Saravan. Stormcast, pretty much what you expect to see out of Stormcast. What do I need access to as battle line options? And if I don't need a specific battle line option, I'll take the ward.
Just as many Heartwood as any other sub-faction. So, hey, good to see Sylvan that's showing up in number. Though I do feel like one of those Heartwood lists I was looking at and wondering if it would have been happier as Iron Oak, just to make sure Durthu never brackets.
Right? Because that was a list with a Lariel and the Durthu where we're like, she's just going to summon a Tree Lord, like, give it a good sub-faction.
Yeah, it's taking Heartwood just for the +1 to hit. It was the second time we saw that loadout. The first one I actually agreed with because there was too many other things going on there already.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, I felt like there's nothing that Heartwood's doing other than +1 attack or +1 to hit, and you've got enough other ways to take care of that through all-out attack. I was just a little, I guess +1 to hit's still good, so I wouldn't knock it too much.
And then for death, Mortis Praetorians, yeah, Null Myriad at 1. That whole thing changed. And then Petrifex Elite, 4 of them, which Dillon has expressed his displeasure with.
It's a pick. Null, I think that it wasn't a nerf, it was more of a side grade given how the range restrictions also went out. The Petrifex one is weird. It'll work into some stuff. It's going to do absolutely nothing into some others.
Yeah. I feel like Feck is what we should expect going forward.
Definitely.
And then Soul Blight, it's weird not having Legion of Night up there.
Legion of Night absent. Yeah, that is weird.
The best sub-faction in there. I don't understand why people don't play it.
I don't know. But Legion of Blood makes sense. Avangori makes sense, but I guess we're just seeing less Soulblight represented, so people like their Nepheratas and their Vlads, so there's a faction specifically for those 2 models.
Gonna be honest, I was looking at playing Legion of Blood as soon as I realized I wasn't going to be able to finish painting my cities in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they dropped the points on Blood Knights. I'm like, or I could just paint nothing at all and bring the list I already have and add another hero because sure, why not?
Yeah. Legion of Blood is comfy. It's it's one of those where it's like, just good stuff, bonuses.
But yeah, no Virkos either for what it's worth. I suppose that's not as big a shot given the battle scroll basically slapped zombies and said, please just stop.
Yes, they did. Not happy about it. So, but yeah, that's our list review tonight. For everyone that stuck around from the beginning, that's 3 hours and some change counting. You guys are fucking animals, and we appreciate you for it. You guys are the best. If you guys got another 3 hours in you, we'll be doing this again tomorrow night. We'll be changing up our guests. I may have to find a 3rd guest to join us for Destruction and Chaos. So we may be recruiting later tonight and through tomorrow. So thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure having you all with us, and we will see you tomorrow. Get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night. Oh, plug the social. Please follow us at DaWeirdcast at Twitter, and if you haven't followed us here on Twitch, please follow us on Twitch.
Dillon, thank you very much for joining us.
Anytime. Yes. Always happy to hang out with you.
Oh. Yeah, going forward, all of our vlogs will be uploaded 2 days after our streams, and all of our vlogs are uploaded on DaWeirdcast at YouTube. So, miss any streams, you can catch them Thursday, recorded on YouTube.
All right, no. I support that we are actually uploading zombie dragons instead of recordings of the video.
I wish we could just have more vlogs. All right, guys. Take care. Love y'all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.